Board Member Barry.
Here.
Board Member Cunningham.
Here.
Thank you. Board Member Skull.
Here.
Board Member Shevlin.
Here.
And Board Member Byers is expected to arrive soon.
Okay. Member Barry, can I have a motion to approve the order of agenda?
I move to approve the order of the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Okay, seeing none. I'd ask now if citizen members of the Budget Committee, if we can start with Mr. Beach and move our way downward to kind of introduce yourselves to the other members and to the community. Thank you.
All right, so I'm Tyler Beach. This is my third, I think, and final year on the Budget Committee. I've lived in Wilsonville for actually just about 10 years. I'm an attorney, mostly public defense, criminal defense, and I'm a pro tem judge in Washington County. I have an 8-year-old. First time I can say that because today's his birthday, and I'm missing his birthday being here, but he's playing baseball right now anyway, which I should be coaching too. But I'm here, and so invested in the community.
Thank you. Mr. Engel.
Hello, my name is Andrew Engel. My family and I have lived in Wilsonville for 9 years. Professionally, I'm a mechanical engineer. Personally, I love running and hiking and learning new information. Running in particular has given me a lot of opportunity to explore Wilsonville up close and see some of the neat spots that it has. This is my first year on the Budget Committee, and I'm jumping in super late in the process. But I feel like the opportunity to participate in the city's Citizens Academy, Civics Academy, and take advantage of that opportunity that the city makes available to get on the path to learning and contributing to the city as a volunteer has been really beneficial, and I'm appreciating the opportunity.
Thank you. And Ms. Russell.
I am Cynthia. This is my second and final term on the Budget Committee. I am a CPA and I'm a financial auditor for the Oregon Secretary of State. I've lived in Wilsonville since about 2017. Was also on the Civics Academy, and that's how I got started in all of this. That's me.
Thank you. Ms. Skritzmeyer.
Thank you. I'm Adrienne Skritzmeyer. Let's see, Wilsonville is my hometown. I grew up here. I moved back here with my own family in 2018 so that my son could have some of the similar experiences that I got to have growing up. He's now a junior at Wilsonville High School and has a lot of my same teachers that I had, which has been an interesting experience. I previously served on the Kitakata Sister City Advisory Board for 5 years with 2 years as board chair. And professionally, I am the community education coordinator at Clackamas Community College. Excited to be here and contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now turn it over to our city attorney, Amanda Gile-Hinman, to elect the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Budget Committee will elect a chair subject to the following rules. Any member of the committee can nominate someone for chair. You can also nominate yourself. Nominations do not have to be seconded. If you are nominated but do not want the position, simply state that you decline the nomination. When the nominations stop, I will call for any further nominations, and when none are forthcoming, I will declare the nominations closed. Once the nominations are closed, we will conduct a roll call vote. Each of you will state the name of your chosen nominee when you are called to vote. If one person receives a majority vote, I will declare the result of the vote. If no one receives a majority of the vote, we will redo the vote until one person receives a majority of the vote. No nominee may be dropped from consideration unless that person voluntarily withdraws. And I will also note that it is practice that it's usually a citizen community member who serves as chair, but that's not a requirement. And then upon a completion of the election of the chair, I would recommend that the committee consider a 5-minute recess in case we need to do some resetting of the dais. So with that, I will open up for nominations for chair of the Budget Committee.
I nominate Board Member Tyler Beach.
I nominate Member Russell.
I second Member Russell being chair.
Any other nominations? All right, I'll declare the nominations closed. So the two options are Committee Member Beach and Committee Member Russell. Can I please, so when you're called, just state which, well, and actually, I guess I'll give an opportunity if either of you want to speak before we, do either of you want to speak at all about?
I'm voting for Committee Member Russell.
All right.
That was coming.
Okay, so with that, when your name is called, state the individual who you would like to have serve as chair. Again, it's Committee Member Beach or Committee Member Russell. And can we please have a roll call vote?
Member Shevlin,
Member Russell.
Member Skull,
Member Russell.
Member Skritzmeyer,
Member Russell.
Member Engel,
Member Russell.
Member Cunningham,
Member Russell.
Member Barry,
Member Russell.
Member Russell,
I will also vote for myself.
Member O'Neill,
Member Russell.
and Member Myers is still absent. Byers, excuse me. Did we get it?
Did Member Beach, did
I
you?
technically already
Oh.
voted, so
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Member Beach, officially.
I'll keep my vote the same. Member Russell.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so the vote is 9-0 for Member Russell to serve as the chair. Do you need a minute to, are you good to go ahead?
I'm good to go ahead if you're good to go ahead.
And Chair Russell, are you good to go ahead, or do you need a recess before to orient yourself? You're good? Okay. I'll let you take it away then.
Okay. I now ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the May 9th and 15th. This says 2024?
Oh, thank you.
It's
That's
last
an
year's,
old
right?
typo. Yes, it
Okay.
is the May 7th and 13th, 2025.
Thank you. I now ask for a motion to approve the May 7th and, you said 13th?
Correct.
2025 City of Wilsonville Budget Committee meetings.
I move that we approve the May 7th and 13th, 2025 City of Wilsonville Budget Committee meeting minutes as written.
Okay. The motion to approve the May 7th, 13th, 2025 City of Wilsonville Budget Committee meeting minutes has been made by, did I skip a step? Do I need a?
By Member Shevlin, but we also need a second.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Okay, the motion to approve the May 7th, 13th, 2025 City of Wilsonville Budget Committee meeting minutes has been made by Member Shevlin and seconded by Member Skritzmeyer. Any discussion?
And I will just note, even if you weren't on the Budget Committee, you are entitled to still vote for the minute, on the minutes.
Okay, all in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Any abstentions? The vote passes
Unanimously.
unanimously. Okay, I call to order the Wilsonville Budget Committee public hearing on the proposed uses of state shared revenues as reflected in the City of Wilsonville's fiscal year 2026-2027 budget at 6:10 PM. This public hearing is to comply with ORS 221.770. Holding the hearing is required in order for the city to participate in the distribution of state shared revenue. Ladies and gentlemen, the Budget Committee will be taking public testimony tonight at the public hearing. The hearing will be conducted in the following manner. Staff will present their report. Next, the Budget Committee will hear public testimony regarding the proposed use of state shared revenue. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes. A timed buzzer will go off when the 3 minutes are up. After all community members who wish to speak have testified, staff will have time to provide any additional comments to the committee. Information regarding how the public could attend this meeting and give testimony is posted at City Hall and was also timely published in the Wilsonville Spokesman and is also posted on the city's website, which is shown on the screen. Notice was given that testimony could be submitted for the record in advance in writing by emailing or mailing it to the city recorder. If you're listening to this meeting remotely, when the time for public testimony is called, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom or press *9 on your telephone if you would like to testify. If you're having difficulties with these instructions, you may call the number shown on the screen and enter the webinar ID number shown on the screen when prompted. When called up to testify, state your full name and address for the record. I request from those providing testimony not to repeat testimony that has already been given to the Budget Committee. Simply indicating you agree with the prior testimony given by a speaker you identify is sufficient. We will begin with the staff presentation of the state shared revenue.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome. I'm Catherine Smith, the city's Assistant Finance Director, and with me this evening is Keith Katko, the city's Finance Director. First up tonight are state shared revenues. ORS 221.760 establishes eligibility for the city to receive state shared revenues if the city provides 4 or more of the following services: police, fire, planning, street construction, maintenance and lighting, sewer, storm, and utility services. The city provides all but fire meeting eligibility. These are revenues collected by the state and dispersed based on population to municipalities. State shared revenues anticipated and budgeted for fiscal year 2026-27 include most notably gas tax. Budgeted at $2 million, this is our single largest state revenue source. The next 3 are general fund revenues: liquor tax of $425,000, state revenue sharing of $340,000, and cigarette tax of $15,000. Next, ORS 221.770 establishes the process for the city to elect distribution of these funds, including enacting resolution and by holding a public hearing allowing for public comment. And that concludes our presentation on state shared revenues. We welcome any questions.
Do any Budget Committee members have any questions for staff at this time? Are there any members of the public who have signed up to testify regarding the state shared revenue? Okay. Okay, does staff have any further presentation or comments before the public hearing is closed?
No.
Okay. Seeing no further requests to testify, the public hearing on the proposed uses of state shared revenues as reflected in the City of Wilsonville's fiscal year 2026-27 budget is now closed at 6:13 p.m. Public hearing number 2. I call to order the City of Wilsonville's Budget Committee public hearing on the City of Wilsonville's fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget at 6:14 p.m. Before explaining the process for the evening, is there any member of the Budget Committee who needs to disclose any conflict of interest?
This is Sean O'Neill, Member O'Neill. I'm disclosing a conflict of interest. I receive a stipend and other compensation from the city due to my service as a city council member.
My name is Sam Skull, a city council member. I am disclosing a conflict of interest that I receive a stipend and other compensation from the city due to my service as a city council member.
Member Barry?
I'm Carolyn Berry. I'm disclosing a conflict of interest that I received a stipend from the city due to my service as the city council member.
Member Shevlin?
I'm Ann Shevlin. I am disclosing a conflict of interest that I receive a stipend from the city due to my service as a city council member.
Member Cunningham?
I am Adam Cunningham. I am disclosing a conflict of interest that I receive a stipend and other compensation from the city due to my service as a city council member.
Okay.
And I will just note for the record that in accordance with Oregon ethics laws, that all members who have made this disclosure are still allowed to participate in the budget decision-making process.
Okay. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the Budget Committee will be taking public testimony tonight at the public hearing. The hearing will be conducted in the following manner. As a courtesy, members of the public have the option to provide public testimony on the proposed budget before the staff presentations begin in order to accommodate those citizens who do not want to wait until the presentations have been made to speak. Community members may elect to wait to testify until after the staff presentations have been completed. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes. A timed buzzer will go off when the 3 minutes are up. Staff will present their report. Additional public testimony will be allowed regarding the proposed fiscal year budget for community members who elected to wait to testify. After all community members who wish to speak have testified, staff will have time to provide any additional comments to the committee. Information regarding how the public could attend this meeting, give testimony, is posted at City Hall and was also timely published in the Wilsonville Spokesman, and is also posted on the city's website, shown on the screen. Notice was given that testimony could be submitted for the record in advance in writing by emailing or mailing it to the city recorder. If you're listening to this meeting remotely, when the time for public testimony is called, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom or press *9 on your telephone if you'd like to testify. If you're having difficulties with these instructions, you may call the number shown on the screen and enter the webinar ID number shown on the screen when prompted. When called up to testify, state your full name and address for the record. I request from those providing testimony not to repeat testimony that has already been given to the Budget Committee. Simply indicating you agree with the prior testimony given by a speaker you identify as sufficient. Is there anyone wishing to testify? I have a card. Do they want to testify now? Yes. Okay. I have Katie Dunwell.
Hello, my name's Katie Dunwell. My address is on file. For the record, I was in your chair last year as a Budget Committee member and also as a city councilor, and I was asking many tough questions. Tonight, let's all experience a bit of deja vu. From the 2026 budget from our then city manager, Brian Cosgrove, he said, without new revenue sources and with the exception of the one-time revenue spike from the TVWD ground lease payoff in fiscal year 2026-27, forecasted expenses will outpace revenues, gradually eroding the general fund balance over time. The city soon faces a key decision. Maintain its current property tax rate, augment it with a local option levy to fund public safety, implement a parks utility fee, explore other alternative revenue sources, or seek cost efficiencies and service reductions, or a combination of all of the above. Now from the 2027 budget letter from our city manager, Gina Troja, and well, congratulations. Without any changes, and with the exception of the one-time revenue spike from the TVWD ground lease, forecasted expenses will outpace revenues. As a result, the city faces key political and policy decisions regarding the future of its general fund. Such general revenue options may include considerations of a local option levy or utility fees, such as for parks maintenance or public safety, or some combination of approaches. With aging infrastructure and increasing parks maintenance and operational demands, the city is already exceeding the service levels originally envisioned. This is essentially a cut and paste alarm bell. She is repeating the alarm bell from a year ago from our city manager. And yet the Budget Committee and the council did nothing. Myself and Councilor Cunningham sounded the alarm bells too last year. And yet the council did nothing. Instead, the mayor gave a State of the City slideshow tour of ribbon cuttings and pretty places to visit in Wilsonville. Not a single mention of the city's imminent budget shortfall and fiscal cliff. Not a single mention. So what did the 2026 Budget Committee and Council do? They kicked the can down the road, just like prior mayors and councils. I ask this of you. No more pretty slideshows and the laissez-faire attitude of let the next council worry about it because we won't be there. Adding fees and taxes to our already financial strapped citizens isn't the way out of this. Ask tough questions tonight. Do your work. Do not support the groupthink promoted by the mayor. You are not a rubber stamp for the finance team. You are here to represent all of us as citizens.
Do any Budget Committee members have questions for the speaker? No. I would like to note for the record that Member Byers has joined. Are there any other requests to testify? Hearing no further requests to testify, the city manager will kick off the budget presentation with the budget message, followed by staff presentations.
Thank you, Chair Russell. Mayor, city councilors, and members of the Budget Committee, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to present the city manager message this evening. It is my privilege to present the proposed fiscal year 2026-27 budget. As this is my first budget as city manager, I want you to know that I approach this responsibility with a strong commitment to the stewardship of the public resources and to supporting the long-term stewardship of this community. A municipal budget is more than just a financial plan. It provides a narrative of a community and its values. As you reflect on the proposed budget, it is our best predictions of what the future holds. This is not a stagnant document. We continue to monitor the assumptions, the expenditures, and the resources throughout the fiscal year, and we make adjustments as needed. The proposed fiscal year 26-27 budget is $330.5 million. It's a relatively status quo budget that continues critical investment in infrastructure and municipal services. Like most communities, we are facing rising costs related to inflation, labor, energy, and materials, along with increasing pension, healthcare obligations. Many of these pressures are outside of our direct control, but it is important that we analyze the impacts on our ability to fund services in the future. When looking at all of our funds, it is important to pay attention to the long-term sustainability of the general fund. While this was mentioned in my message at the beginning of your budget document, I want to assure you that the general fund sustainability is not an immediate crisis that needs to have a course correction this next fiscal year. A parks fee, local option levy are possible options that have been discussed tangentially as solutions to any potential revenue shortfall. However, revenue decisions should not be made in a vacuum or without detailed analysis of the entire general fund. That includes expenditures as well as revenues. As your new city manager, it is important to me that any decision made about the future of the general fund is made in a strategic manner. Given this, I have already started an internal process to conduct a high-level strategic assessment of the general fund over the next 6 months. I have asked the interim assistant city manager, Steve Reimer, who is in this room in the back, to lead this project along with collaboration from Mr. Katko and Ms. Smith. At the conclusion of this assessment, the results and options, which may or may not include a recommendation for additional revenue sources, will be brought to the City Council for consideration. I thank you for your patience as staff undertakes this important assessment process. While the general fund needs a deeper dive, it is important to note that other city funds are healthy. Wilsonville has a history of prudent financial management. Our work does not stop with the adoption of the budget. It continues through ongoing evaluation, collaboration, and community engagement. Finally, I want to thank the entire finance team, led by Keith Katko, the finance director, and Catherine Smith, the assistant finance director. They have done the heavy lifting on the proposed budget that is in front of you this evening. I also want to thank the city's leadership team, who will present their department budgets over the next 2 committee meetings, for their continued commitment to delivering high-quality services to this community every day. I am honored to lead this organization, work alongside with the Budget Committee and the City Council, and I'm happy tonight to present to you the proposed fiscal year 26-27 budget. And that concludes my remarks.
Okay, thank you, Gina. I can pick it up from here. My name is Keith Katko. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and Budget Committee members. I'm the city's finance director, and I'm going to provide a consolidated overview of the city's budget, covering total revenues and expenditures with key context in an efficient, expeditious, and informative way. But please stop me anytime along the way. We have a lot to cover. Sometimes I'll talk a little bit fast, but please at any time interrupt. The city budget is really 24 separate fund budgets, but this consolidated approach that I'm going to take here breaks out revenue and expenses categories and compares them to prior year budget, and it's a very insightful way to do things. Following the overview, we'll have all the department level directors come up and present their operating budgets, followed by the capital improvement infrastructure budget. Next week, we'll have Zach Weigel, our city engineer, come up and talk about the CIP budget, and that'll be in the next budget presentation next week. So before we begin, I have 3 key points to set the stage for the overview. And the first point is that the city uses fund accounting. As required by governments, it focuses on accountability, tracking where revenues come from, establishing these type of guardrails. I have all the funds, the 24 funds listed up there, and doing the fund accounting ensures that these revenues are used in compliance with legal, statutory, and council requirements. Unlike private sector accounting, which many of you may be more familiar with, which emphasizes profitability, fund accounting ensures public resources are used properly and in full compliance with applicable rules. So I have all the funds listed there, particularly the operating funds and their main revenue drivers in each fund. Like I mentioned before, the city oversees 24 funds, 11 operating funds, 7 system development charge funds, often called SDC funds, and 6 capital improvement funds. The CIP funds are primarily funded through transfers from either operating or SDC funds. And the capital project funds are where the capital budget that Zach, our city engineer, will talk about next week. So, like I mentioned, the CIP funds really depend on those transfers in from the operating or the SDC funds. They don't really have a dedicated funding source. And just to note, urban renewal funds are not included here. The Urban Renewal Agency is a separate municipal corporation, and it has its own financial structure, and we'll have that budget presentation next week as well. So those are them. And at the bottom, I have highlighted the 4 enterprise funds that the city has, which are the water operating, sewer operating, and street lighting and stormwater funds. These funds are supported by user fees and operated to cover costs versus kind of the governmental funds that are clustered at the top, which rely on taxes and grants and require more policy-type decisions to allocate resources across their various services. The second kind of point, before we go into the overview, I just want to emphasize is the legal level of control here at the city. Each fund has a budget, and within that fund, there are legally defined categories around each of these areas listed. The operations, these are the departments, and we will have the department heads come up as soon as I'm done explaining their individual budgets. We have a guardrail around capital improvement projects. That'll be the city engineer, debt service, interfund transfers, and contingencies. Contingencies are really the ending fund balance in each fund. So all city funds combined budget is $300.5 million, and by law, the budget must be in balance. Total resources must be equal to total requirements. So we are budgeting everything here. That's why the number is particularly large. That includes our beginning fund balance, and that includes our ending fund balance on the requirement side. Aside to this, the city budget, just to note, is a plan. It's a projection. These are not actual results. So figures reflect adopted revenues and expenditures, not year-end outcomes. That is a different financial report, the annual financial report that we do in June. So those are the kind of 3 main points I wanted to get into before we talk about the budget overview. Here it is. So here is kind of the construct of how I'll go through. These are the main 10 revenue categories across funds. I have last year's budget, this year's budget, and I kind of try to flesh out any differences or talk about them to the right here. First one up, of course, is property tax. It's very important for the general fund. It's the main revenue source for the general fund. The city permanent tax rate, as you may be aware of, was established in 1998 by Measure 50 at 2.5206 per 1,000 of assessed value. So we did a quick look on Redfin, grabbed a house that was for sale, listed at $625,000 on Redfin. It's got an assessed real market value at the county of $620,000, which is not bad. There's the $5,000 differentiation there, but the assessed value is $337,000. It's kind of that mark there, about 54% is the kind of average of the assessed value to real market value. And of course, your tax bill is assessed on the assessed value of your house. So $337,000 divided by 1,000 times our permanent rate equals $849 a year for a homeowner that may own a $625,000 house, and that's about $71 a month. Those provide the general fund services for facilities maintenance, parks and recreation, library, law enforcement, code enforcement, general city administration, park CIP, facility CIP, and IT CIP, which is broadband and any of the computer endeavors we have on tap. With property tax, everybody or many people know your assessment on your house is limited to 3%. That came about with Measure 50 as well. For the city, that's 3% growth, but we also get any new construction or any additional to that. So what's new? We budgeted a 4% increase over next year. That's not irrational exuberance. It's kind of cautious optimism. We kind of, sometimes we get up to 5%. So we did a year over year, about $13.1 million that we're expecting in property tax revenue. Kind of mentioned this before, that bottom, towards your right bottom there, is the property change ratio for new development is about 54%. So a new house listing, maybe $800,000 out there at Frog Pond, is going to hit the tax roll about at $432,000. $432,000 divided by 1,000 times our permanent rate of 2.5206 is about $1,090 for each $800,000 real market value house. So it's something to consider. With a quick check of our building permits, in 2025, we had about 70 residential building permits last year in the calendar year, 2025. And we'll have Dan Carlson coming in next week, our building inspector, to talk about development impending in the next year. Houses are assessed each January 1st, so they were assessed this past 3 months ago, and so that's what we'll be receiving for the next fiscal year. Key challenges, as Gina touched on, the general fund relies heavily on property taxes. Revenue growth is constrained by law, rising operating costs. You can tell, with everybody's budget. And the aging infrastructure, especially in the parks and public safety, are outpacing revenue. And we will have a long-term structural gap opening, which will limit service capacity into the future out there. The formula, it all boils down basically to a math formula. The taxable assessed value for the city is about $5.1 billion. That's the value of the city in assessment. And that comes about with the quirkiness of property tax. It's the minimum of your house's real market value or the maximum assessed value. So that's kind of mostly your assessed value is going to be way lower than any real market value. But what happens if the economy turns really, really bad and houses plunge in market value, it could be assessed against your real market value, but that's only going to happen. Houses would really have to significantly fall. So that's kind of the built-in structure of the Oregon property tax system. Like I mentioned, for 2026, we had about $5 billion in assessed value times $1,000 times our permanent tax rate of 2.5206 equals about $12.5 million. And that number, the budget last year was 12.6 if you look up in that left corner. So it's right in there. It can be a more of a difficult number to pin exactly for a budget because people they prepay it, they pay the 3% discount. Of course, if you pay early, there's delinquents, and it really comes in Most of the property tax revenue for the city comes in November, but it really dribbles in all fiscal year. So we're looking at anywhere about $13.1 million for our property tax revenue next year. Future considerations, there's some key policy decisions ahead for the council, looking at cost efficiencies, level of service, and revenue options. And these can include a variety of things, local option, a bond, or a utility fee. This next slide, I kind of get into a little bit more of some of our tax rate comparisons. And I have these sorted by the total tax rate with that black band around it, starting with Canby, Sherwood. Their total effective tax rate is 3.9 per thousand, followed by Sherwood, Tigard, Tualatin, Wilsonville, and West Lynn. And then their tax collections for each city for 25, 26. One of the key takeaways I think of here, and if you notice, you look at the tax base. Look at Wilsonville's tax base of $5.1 billion versus Canby has a tax base of $2.2 million. So they have the need for that higher permanent tax rate just to get, just to make the math formula equate to a level of taxation that they need to collect. Tax base is the key driver here. Canby and Sherwood both have higher tax rate, but generate less revenue due to that smaller tax base. I think as a financial perspective, it really underscores the importance for the city of the Coffee Creek and the Basalt Creek areas for the future prosperity of the city. Those areas, that's our treasure for the city. Those are the industrial lands. Those will be potentially could be, taxed at a higher assessed value. You want to look what's coming in, from a financial perspective. Of course, if we were clearly a business perspective, you're going to want to maximize your assessed value. That would be your corporate policy, but we don't operate that way. You have the factor of livability. There's a yin and yang of dynamic here. Each side really depends on the other. You have livability and you have, maintaining financial susceptibility. They're not mutually exclusive. There's some specific things you can do to increase your assessed value in your city, and there's some general things. General things are you want to make this place, a place where people want to come, or want to invest, or want to build their business. So there's a little bit of a yin and a yang in creating that tax base. But the tax base of $5.1 billion for the city is, a valuable kind of a knowledge piece there. And this chart just shows the variation between cities, the policy trade-offs they make. You fund services through the tax rate of Wilsonville. That's primarily what we've tried to do, the 2.5206 permanent tax rate. Tigard can supplant their permanent tax rates with local option levies, or a couple of, even Tigard, Tualatin, bolster their general fund's capital needs through a bond. Tigard, Tualatin, and West Lynn do that. Or I don't have it displayed here, but they lean into utility-style fees, like West Lynn does, and that would be like an example of a park maintenance fee. It's somewhat of a trend nationally to try to pivot away from the property tax, structure. And so it's a national trend in some areas, some states. But there's a myriad of policy options, basically, on the revenue equation of the side of balancing, particularly general fund, when you're talking about property taxes as your revenue source. Wilsonville is unique. It has that strong industrial logistics base. Unlike a traditional bedroom, I've gotten this comment before that we're a typical suburb. We're really not. This is a very strong employment-based city. Many people commute to Wilsonville for work, not just out of it. They're coming here for jobs. It's really an employment-centered suburb, I guess. It's not a bedroom community. Where perhaps you could see West Lynn, which is very structured. Their tax collections are very structured to residential assessment. Wilsonville's pretty lucky to have that industrial lands base. So the trick that can be here is balancing growth, residential, commercial, industrial, and really keeping an eye and managing that city total taxable assessed value. It's kind of my plug on the property tax take. kind of beat that up, but we can move on to additional taxes that we have available. One of the other big drivers for taxes in the city is the transit tax leveled on employers. It's a rate of 0.5%, which is 0.0005 of every dollar. For and that goes into the transit fund. We have a hotel motel tax, and we generate about $600,000 of general fund. It's a 5% hotel tax. They also have a gas tax. It's collected by the state, allocated to the city. That's what funds the road operating fund. It's about 40 cents a gallon and allocated to the city based on population. So for the budget, year over year, we were being really conservative, negative 2%, but it's about 100,000 differential, essentially flat. People are driving more fuel-efficient cars. Perhaps they're driving less with jacked up fuel costs, but it'll come in around 9 million. License permits and fees. So what this includes in the general fund, this is going to include the franchise and right-of-way fees, includes business license fees in the general fund. In the building and CD funds, it includes about $1.3 million in building permits, about $400,000 in engineering and planning permits. We'll have the CD department up here next week to kind of paint us a picture a little bit of what they're anticipating for particularly private development in the city, if anything is on the horizon. We also have a very small amount in the Parks Capital Projects Fund that what we call for tree mitigation. When any developer comes in, may clear cut a level of trees that we require a deposit, and that's how that gets funded. It's for future tree planting. What's new, of course, is Frog Pond. The Frog Pond that is there and the Frog Pond that is in the future. We have some critical infrastructure still needed in the Frog Pond East and South divisions of the city. And Zach, again, our city engineer, Zach Weigel, will come in and talk about that a little bit next week. As I mentioned, for 2025, we had about 70 residential building permits. And again, they'll talk about private development, but it's really, nobody gives us huge timelines of when they're coming in to develop in the city. So it's a level of uncertainty. It could be a feast or famine a lot of times with new development coming into the city. So we are cautiously optimistic. We put a 7% increase in license fees and permits for our budget for next year. Intergovernmental, this includes all the grants the city receives and other funding sources. The general fund is a beneficiary of about $3 million. A lot of that comes from the library district overlay. We have state shared revenues, which Catherine just talked about. We have a small nutrition program over at the community center funded by the federal government. There's a variety of local government, metro, state, kick some money in for various projects. In that intergovernmental also includes $100,000 from the DLCD, Department of Land Conservation, for a community development grant. But overwhelmingly, the largest portion of intergovernmental grants for the city at whole is in the transit fund. We receive about $3.8 million in federal state funding. We're a direct recipient of federal funding from the FTA, and those grants mostly pay for buses. We don't use most of that or we use maybe a small portion for operations, but they're typically for the larger cost buses and equipment. Road CIP fund is a beneficiary of about $500,000 from the vehicle license fee of the county. And for our upcoming capital projects, what's in that intergovernmental line also is finishing up the water treatment plant expansion. We split that cost a third with the city of Sherwood, so we have some cost efficiencies there with providing water service for the city of Sherwood. They pick up the tab of about a third of it. The police building seismic rehabilitation of 1.6 million, that's in the budget, but it will also be a CIP project that Zach will explain for the police building across the street. If we don't get the grant, we won't have the expense. So we did budget the expense. We don't have any word yet of receiving the grant, but it's in that budgeted number of 1.6 million. But if that doesn't materialize, the project won't materialize. And there's also some smaller grants. The Beckman Creek Trail Boardwalk project, that's also a CIP, has a small grant from the state. That's reflected in that number right now. Charges for services. In this category is your utility fee payments. City receives about $29 million from water, sewer, storm, road maintenance, and stormwater fees. We have about 7,400 customers. 87,600 bills processed. And in that number, we sell water to the city of Sherwood. We get about 1.6 million from that. In this charges for services category, the city has a fund here called Fleet. It manages all the operational fleet needs for the city, and that fund is reimbursed by charges out to other funds, and it comes back as charges for services. And the main expense for a department will be the transit department, who probably is responsible for about 85% of the fleet charges in any given year. But that's where all the fuel, the repairs and maintenance, and there's also every department that has a vehicle is charged for the vehicle use, as well as there's a component for the replacement costs. So that we're building up a reserve for vehicle replacements as each year as those departments are charged. With utilities, the variables are always going to be growth and weather, particularly if we have a hot summer, people are going to use more water. That revenue number may spike. Of course, we have the sewer rate increase and we have the stormwater rate increase, so charges for services have been budgeted at 13%. And those go into the enterprise funds mostly. SDC, these are the charges and the revenue back to the city that are charged for new development. We have a water, sewer, storm, street, and parks SDC fee that new developers are required to pay. It's based on a fee to reimburse for the existing infrastructure. There's a component of it called the reimbursement fee, and to make planned improvements that increase capacity because of that development. So there's two components to any system development fee. What's new is the inflationary rate increase, and that's tied to the engineering news record. So it's tied to the construction cost index, which has increased a lot. Construction is very expensive. But we tie our SDC rates to that. So we have an uptick we're expecting an uptick in SDC revenue. And again, we can talk about that a little bit more when the Community Development Department comes up next week, as they're the generator of that revenue. Investment revenue is what we do with the funds that we are holding. The city follows the ORS 294 investment policy. We have an investment portfolio of about $133 million. Most of that we keep in with the state investment pool. It's called the LGIP. They cap it. We can only invest about $64 million with them. They have about a 4% rate, not too bad. The rest of that we have to invest in U.S. Treasuries or AAA corporate debt. They're trending a little bit lower. Interest rates potentially dropping further, but we're somewhere around a 3.5 investment return. And our investment policy limits us to that 18-month out. So we're also subject to what they call mark-to-market, when bond prices move inversely to interest rates, and so we make an adjustment to our current we adjust our bond portfolio periodically to current market conditions. When interest rates rise, bond prices tend to fall, so we pin it, and we'll make an adjustment to our investment revenue, which is really, we hold our investment to full term. So the manipulations to market are are more of an accounting need than the actual investment return we will ultimately receive because we do hold on to our investments for the 18 months. Court fines, this isn't all court fines. This is a category where we kind of lump in everything else. The majority of this is the TVWD ground lease lump sum payment that the city is expecting of $15.4 million. A large portion of that, $8.9 million, will be used to defease the Beckman Road Corridor Project interfund loan from the water operating fund that we did a couple of years ago. So it'll pay down that, it'll pay off that interfund loan, and it'll kick back about $6.5 million, like Gina Troja mentioned, as that one-time spike in the general fund of $6.5 million next year. That gets us, so we subtotal it there, and then we have some other kind of revenue categories here, one being the interfund activity. And that's kind of, if you remember our fund slide up there, we have money coming out of the SDC funds, going into the CIP funds to fund those projects, coming out of the operating funds as well. So that's what that activity is, as well as, and that's the majority of that activity, as well as you may know that certain departments are housed in the general fund. That would be admin, HR, finance, legal, IS, and facilities. We cost allocate those out to other funds based on a certain methodology drivers. For example, the way HR is allocated to like transit department is based on the number of FTEs. So there's a specific driver for each one of these general fund departments to get to transfer those out to various other funds, including transit, like I mentioned, the water sewer fund, based on a variety of drivers. Also, within the interfund activity, we have an engineering staff here who work on projects as well. And so there's some transfers into the CD fund for their work on as project management fees for those large capital projects in the capital fund. So that'll create some transfers back to reimburse for those expenses back to the CD fund. Loan proceeds. So it's essentially flat. This was budgeted last year and it's budgeted again this upcoming year. We have a revolving debt that we can take advantage of from the Oregon DEQ from their Clean Water Services State Revolving Fund, and that is to fund two significant capital projects that we had budgeted last year. Didn't start. They're going to be budgeted again next year, and that is the Beckman Creek Interceptor and the wastewater treatment plant aeration expansion program. So to the extent those projects don't start, we won't have that debt, but the debt is budgeted as needed, and it's a revolving type debt, which is particularly nice as we will only need to draw down as expenses incur. And you may remember I sent out a couple months ago an estimation of our ending fund balance in a memo. We're in our current year, so I can't say with 100% uncertainty where we're going to end. So we make an estimation, we do a calculation of, okay, this is where we're going to end. And so that becomes our budgeted beginning fund balance for each fund. So the beginning fund balance in total is $103 or $104 million. And that's an estimation that becomes our budgeted beginning fund balance. That's the total resources. That's how we got to that $300.5 million number. And we flip over and we'll look at budget requirements. Same number because revenues must equal requirements. Personnel service budget is up 5%, and that reflects a decrease of 0.5 FTE. We had a planner left mid-year, so part of that planner position is in the prior year, and part of it will be in next year, so there'll be a total decrease of 1.0, but it spans two fiscal years. So personnel service number is 201.85 FTE for the city, and that is our personnel service budget. Materials and service budget, $35.2 million, up 11%. Of course, the city contracts out some pretty big portions of its services, including the operation of the water treatment plant with Veolia. That'll be a $3.9 million cost. We contract out the operations of our sewer treatment plant, about $3.2 million from Jacobs. And we contract out for police with Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, and that figure is about $8.5 million. There's a myriad of other services we contract out, including meter reading, street sweeping, printing, computer maintenance projects. Our computer maintenance contracts are a huge part of the contracted out service costs. Everything's moved to software as a service, including our city's main, what we call an ERP system. It runs the city's, basically runs the city electronically. So those are all reflected in that material service number, and all are increasing. Capital outlay, these are the type of movable equipment purchases. They're not infrastructure. So these will be the buses in transit. There's some public works equipment that's in there, some fleet. These are scheduled replacements of vehicles, and as well as some general fund equipment. And that's budgeted at 2.8. Capital improvement budget is the combination of those 6 capital funds, and Zach will go over these in detail when we talk about the capital improvement budget. They're made up of a number of capital projects in each category there. It's down, I would say, mostly because some of the larger ticket CIP items fall off. The completion of the water treatment plant expansion is completed, and so that is primarily driving that decrease in capital improvement, at least for next year. Debt, the city has 3 outstanding external bond issuances. We have one for the wastewater treatment plant, one for the water treatment plant, and one for the public works complex that was built a number of years ago. They are listed here with their current rates and their financial maturity. What's new, that number gets jacked up, is, as I mentioned, we have an interfund loan that the TVWD lease payment will pay off, so the debt, at least the debt expense for fiscal year 27 increases, but the debt reflected on the balance sheet goes away. Interfund, those are going to equal it's a revenue in one fund, it's an expense in the other, so they kind of wash. It's just that movement between funds. Reflects an ending fund balance. This is the contingency. This is the ending fund balance of the city. It's budgeted at $97.8 million, and that gets us to total requirements. You can see we subtotaled up total operating expenses of 67.9 over year. That was a 5% increase. And when we have the individual department budget directors come up, that's what they'll be talking about, their individual operating budgets, and that combines to make that number. So that was that, and I apologize if I missed anything, but feel free if you want to go back and ask anything. I think and if that was a helpful presentation, you can let me know, or if you'd like to see a different presentation, in the future of how things are overview, but let me know any feedback or any questions.
I have a question, Keith. Thank you. I know you set the slides up so that you could then break down each category. So we don't have these slides in our binder as they were presented here. We can look for each fund separately.
Right.
But this was really helpful. I don't know whether it would be, if you would be able to share these with the committee members.
Yeah, I can shoot them out.
I would find it helpful just to go over it a little more.
It's a huge
detail.
PowerPoint
Sure.
size, but I think we can PDF them, and it hopefully
Thank you. That would be helpful
won't
for me.
explode your email box, but you can let me know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Member School?
I'm going to let you go through, when we get into all the departments and all that, I'll have other questions. But just one definition, privilege tax. What does that consist of?
Well, it's a right-of-way. There's a couple terminology for that. It's the right-of-way for, that allows outside utility companies the access to city property, roads, streets, to string their, power poles.
So it's an
and-
access rent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, privilege, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Member Scripps-Meyer.
I have a question also. It's a very general personnel services related question. I'm wondering if early retirement incentives have ever been offered in order to realize cost savings on PERS, particularly for Tier 1 and Tier 2 PERS recipients.
I can say for Tier 1, no, we haven't, is the short answer. Tier 1, Tier 2 employees, we have about 15%, or I think it was 15% of the employees offhand who would qualify that. They tend to be more the older senior employees at the city. Tier 1 ended in 1996. You had to start service. So I don't know the specifics. And Tier 2 ended, I think, in 2003. So the way the cities generally handle it is just been through attrition, basically, as those employees cycle out of the system. Again, we're really only about 15% of our workforce. Tier 1 and Tier 2, of course, was replaced by a PERS system called OPSERP, which is a lower level, lower benefit, higher retirement age, less, basically for employees starting after 2003. I'm not exactly sure on those dates, but I can do a little bit more research and get back to you. But in short, we haven't. What we did do, what the city council did back in 2019, we invested in, the state of Oregon had what they called an employer incentive fund back then, where the city council invested with the state investment fund of like $3 million, and the state of Oregon matched that by 25%. So it ended up creating for the city basically about a $4 million side account that is being amortized of future rate increases for PERS. So it's mitigating those future rate increases, basically. It's being amortized against the rate, and it's lowering our rate going forward, at least for the next 20 years or 30 years. So it is something that the city proactively did about 5 years ago.
Do you mind if I add?
Yeah.
I might be able to provide just an additional context to that. While we have not done that, what we do is when a position becomes vacant, we do an analysis of, is there a need to fill that position before we automatically fill it? So there's an analysis to which we take a look at, is that position needed? And if so, can that work be done by other positions? So there isn't an automatic fill of positions when they become vacant.
Just one last comment. Hearing that 15% number was very helpful. I was actually wondering exactly that, like how many employees actually fall into that category. So thank you.
One more.
Member Skull.
So just a general question. Quite a few years back after the Great Recession, I know we did several budget committee meetings where PERS was upside down and everything. Have they worked their way out of that, and are they flush now?
Yeah, I don't have enough expertise in the PERS system to say. I know it, I don't have anything I can offer at that level to make you.
Because at the time, I think we were, we had to cover some of the difference, if I remember correctly, and I would bet that we're not doing that now.
Right, it fluctuates based on, because the PERS, it's subject to a myriad of revolving legislation, actuarial realities as people die off,
Well, I think if you remember, we actually had to have a special session where the PERS.
Yeah, we
group
brought
came
someone
here
in
and
from the
explained it
Oregon
to
PERS,
us. Yeah.
or we brought a consultant in, I
Right.
remember, that was very vetted in the PERS knowledge. My inclination is yes, from ancillary information that I keep up with in the news, that the PERS system is better funded, in a better financial position than it was.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Member Cunningham?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question, I guess it's a little bit less about this budget specifically and a little bit more about this body. In discussions with somebody who served on the Budget Committee before, I asked the question of what their touch points were with the budget throughout the year, and was told that it's basically they get the binder 2 weeks before these meetings, and we're in these meetings for about a week, and they have about 3 weeks of touch with the budget all year. Are there any other touch points? Do we incorporate the Budget Committee in any other way during the year as we go through with, things like the $1.5 million amendment that council approved recently?
They get quarterly financials every quarter, and as well as the council. So we keep them engaged this way, which is above and beyond the purpose or the stated structure of the Budget Committee under our municipal law. So we have a hybrid type of methodology we use to keep the Budget Committee. They're essentially really only need to meet twice a year to provide public engagement for the budget process. But we do send them out quarterly reports, which lists the financial status of each fund, as well as the investments, what we're investing in. And then we do a mid-year review where I send out a memo basically detailing where we are at. I think I sent that out in March. That would be the extent and I do notify them of budget supplementals, particularly the large one we do in October, where we're rolling over CIP projects in particular from one year to another. So we get an email for that. But we don't contract, or we don't engage the Budget Committee for additional meetings other than the 2 required under the Oregon budget law.
Yeah, so I guess that kind of segues into my next thought on this body. There's been some discussions recently about what the purpose of this body is, and obviously under ORS 294414, there's a requirement that we have it. ORS 294426 to 428 outline what the powers of this committee are, but our city code, our website page for the Budget Committee, it's all pretty mum on what the roles and responsibilities that we have here are. And so for me, especially with those recent discussions, I think it would be important for our community to understand what's the point of this Budget Committee? Why are we here? What are we convening for? Last year there was some pretty large questions raised about some of the budget, and if I'm not mistaken, we ended up with an approved budget that was a carbon copy of the proposed budget, that nothing really changed through some pretty large conversations last year. And so, and this is for Keith or anyone who might have input on this, but I think our community is confused. I think there's an expectation that I've heard from a lot of people about what we're doing here or what we're not doing here. And if anyone has any input on what our role and responsibility is, besides, we have the powers outlined in the ORS. That's to receive the budget, to provide the public an opportunity to ask some questions, to discuss and deliberate, to request from officers and employees information for the budget approval, so to have department heads come before us and have some back and forths, specify the ad valorem property tax amount or rate, and approve the budget as voted on by the committee and forward to the city council. So I don't know if anybody has anything else that would be helpful, but I would be happy to hear.
If I could jump in. So we do have a section in our city code about the Budget Committee. So if there is any consideration of additional context for what the Budget Committee does, that should be brought before City Council and would be part of an ordinance discussion to amend that section.
Yeah, to that point, when I went to go interview Budget committee candidates. Like I said, the code's pretty mum. It pretty much says that we are supposed to have a committee. But it doesn't really say what we're here for. So for me, when we're going to spend, 8 hours in this room over the next week or so, talking about this, we don't really know why we're here, except for, we have the general idea that we'll talk about it and we'll discuss it, and we'll just approve it. So that's just food for thought. It might be something that we would consider expanding upon, and maybe having an opportunity for the public to be a little bit more aware of what we're doing here.
Chair? I have an idea in response to Member Cunningham's statements. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, if we count Counselor Skull, having been on the Budget Committee, 5 even. I guess I would ask if it's a question of value, which I know that's not your word, but maybe that was a word that popped into my head. Those of you that have been on the Budget Committee for a number of years now, can you summarize what your role has been, and do you feel like it's been of value? Again, my question about value. I don't know if anyone feels comfortable doing that, but I'd like to hear if possible.
I'll speak to it. This is my first, or not my first, my 5th Budget Committee. And I see this very similar to a business. You have a budget team here, you have a staff out there with staff directors that go out, and during the year, they roll that budget up, or they roll up what they need. They see what the council goals are, and they see what the needs of the business, not the needs of the business, the needs of the city are, and they roll that budget, they roll it to the finance group, and then in my experience, I would do the same thing. We would do an annual plan, and we would do an annual plan presentation to everybody involved. In that annual plan, we give it, the finance team and the management team time to basically tell the group, whoever that group is, that management group, what that's about. And then basically you can ask questions, you can do, what analysis you need to do. And then when you're done with that, then that, in this case, that's moved off to the council for further approval, further question, further debate, and further approval. And so this is a vehicle to have public participation. People can see what's going on from a staff level position, from a budget position. They can ask questions, and then basically it gets moved on from there, and then it can either be not approved or approved by city council. So it's a vehicle to basically inform. In terms of changes, this is a balanced budget. Keith stated this is not a for-profit budget, so it's a little bit different. It is a balanced budget. You can look at the graphs and you can see where the reserves are going to dip off, and there could be some issues here in the future, but that also gives us as a council and as a group and as a community, the opportunity to look at those opportunities. And as the city manager stated, they're going to have what I call a tiger team go off and analyze that and give us the options as a council to make the decisions as to what the budget's going to look like in the future. So I see this as a value to basically walk through this budget in detail and ask the questions that need to be asked and inform the public as to what's going on through 400 pages worth of budget.
I can share. So the value of this, I would say, we get a variety of backgrounds of the public asking questions and sharing what's important to them, and then we have public input, and they're able to share what's important to them. I do get, I think, where you're coming from. There have been times where, as someone who at least enjoys looking at numbers, it would be nice if there was maybe like a mid-year meeting or something to where it wasn't just all of this all at once. But I think this provides a lot of value in getting a lot of different perspectives, even if it is in such a short time frame. But I know I wouldn't mind having additional discussions or review before we approve the budget.
Thank you both.
Any other questions?
I actually have a question. Commissioner Cunningham made me think of this. What happens if we vote no? I actually don't know what would happen, because we don't have another meeting, right? So does Does it just go back to the city council? What happens at that point?
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's the city council
Yeah.
who has the most important vote on the city budget. I don't know really what if the budget committee voted no. I don't know the legal ramifications of that. Probably wouldn't be great, particularly if the city council voted against it. I don't know. I'll have to look at the legality of that.
I guess it goes, like, I'm not saying I'm gonna vote no, I'm just saying that
Yeah.
it gives it to what Councilor Cunningham was saying, is that, I guess that goes into what's our purpose. If we're voting on something and if we end up voting no, does it shut the whole thing down? Or does it just kind of, well, we just move on anyway?
Quite
that's-
possibly, but-
I never thought about that
Yeah,
before.
you know, you're voting for the operation of the city, the permission to keep operating. So the budget isn't actuals. It's just the guardrails, the plan of, moving to the future. So I'd have to look a little bit more into the legal ramifications of not approving the budget.
I just want to say, like, not trying to say that there's no value in this committee or anything like that. I think that putting these numbers and being able to have these conversations in front of the public is of utmost importance, so that there's transparency around how we're spending this money, their money. But just, the consideration would be going forward to find some way that we maybe communicate what the roles and responsibilities here are. When I went to create the questions for an interview, I went and I looked and I went to go look at what are the roles and responsibilities to form some questions off of that. And then I went, well, now the question is, what do you see your role and responsibility on this committee as, since we don't have those laid out? I just think that would be a critical piece for the community to understand, and I think for all of us going into these conversations to be on the same footing, on the same page about what we're doing exactly and how we're moving through this, whether that's to question the numbers or whether that's to say, hey, it's really important that we build another soccer field somewhere. I won't say baseball field because that would be biased, of course. Or that we need to take a look at this and the way we're spending this money because of a public safety issue. So that's not really outlined anywhere, and that's where I think people and myself are running into confusion, because there's been different messages about it at different times that I've heard, and I think the community's heard as well. So obviously, we're going to go through this just like we did last year. We'll go through and listen to all these and ask good questions and work through it. But just maybe something for future consideration, and to also look at, if you look at page 14 of the Reader's Guide, it lays out the budget process. It's a whole page, all these different dates and things that occur. And it just struck me that we have a budget committee that has basically one touch point out of that whole page. It feels like the committee, as Chair Russell said, maybe a mid-year meeting to check in, something like that. I know it's going to take more time out of my free schedule, but I'm here for it, so.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that. I mean, as Councilor Shevlin said and Amanda, our city attorney, noted, we're operating the budget committee as required by state law. And that mostly is for community engagement purposes. Certainly an expanded role could go in a myriad of reasons. You could have it as an adjunct committee, you could have it as an advisory board, but the policy decisions are always going to be council. It can flow information back both ways, but certainly what I can do is promote the idea of an additional mid-year meeting touch point, make sure we are all engaged in our quarterly reports. And if there's any feedback at any of those touch points, please let me know. Any questions as well. If you see something, we're all kind of, we do financial reports to all the direct managers of the city. It's all part of the internal control system of the city. Everybody needs to be looking at the financials. So when we turn those over to the managers, they're looking at it for questions. We turn it over to the council, there's an expectation that they're looking at it as well. So, from our perspective in finance, we're always looking for more engagement and more back and forth feedback, so.
Chair Russell. Mr. Keko, I served for 5 years on the Budget Committee. I seem to remember that we used to get information over the years, during the year, for updates. And I remember one year, prior mayor, where I emailed you, said, well, what's this change? Because I read it in the newspaper that the council had upped the budget by a large amount. And so why wasn't the Budget Committee notified? Because historically, we used to get these little emails that would update us with things.
Right.
So has there been a change in the process? Because when I served, we used to get more information during the year, and it seemed, at least at that time, we were getting less.
Yeah, we do. I remember that we do now send to the Budget Committee notices of the budget supplemental, like I mentioned, particularly for the October one. We typically do maybe 3 budget supplementals a year. The big one is in October when we're rolling over, and it's just a notice for, mostly for your information.
So they can't, there's no way of, I gave input. I said, well, what is this?
Right, I remember you
So
asked
I read it the first time in the newspaper.
Right.
And I was like, how come we didn't have this information at least? So there is no process to provide further input?
Well, for budget supplementals, again, it's not legally required.
Okay.
We can reconvene, if there is a desire to reconvene budget committees for budget supplementals, it's certainly something we can look into, but it's mostly a city council discretion for the budget supplementals.
Because I always found it helpful for me on the, as,
But certainly the information we can provide as a for-your information, we're taking to council a budget supplemental, just be aware. You can come to the public testimony and the public hearing, because it's a public hearing when we do a budget supplemental. Would be.
I think people on council, especially when you're a citizen member, they take ownership of this. It's a lot of work I know it's only 2 days, but it's a lot of work to go through this. And so I think they're invested in it, even though it might leave and go formally in front of council. So it would be helpful to have them continue to be a part of the process.
Yeah.
So anyway, my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Member Shevlin.
Thank you. And Chair, I'm sorry, I don't want to lead us astray, but I do feel like this is a really valuable discussion. What's our purpose, and are we providing some value to our citizens? So in response to Councilor Cunningham's question, what happens if we vote no? Well, I happened to be listening to Oregon Public Radio this afternoon, and I heard a story about the city of Lakeview, Oregon. I'm not sure very many people know where Lakeview is. I've been there in an air ambulance many times to pick up premature infants. Their city is collapsing. They are running out of money. People are moving away, and I'm going to follow it just because I'm interested in Lakeview. It's on Highway 395, so it's a thoroughfare, but nobody's living there much anymore. I don't know what the population is. I'm sure it's less than 5,000 people. But anyway, so they're struggling. I don't know how they voted on their budget. They don't have any money. So my point being that it's a bit of a testimony that while we are sitting pretty comfortable, we know on the horizon there are definitely challenges ahead that our budget committee, our staff, and our city council are going to have to deal with. So we're not at the Lakeview level, but we're in a good place, but we have challenges, and I believe that all of us are up to that challenge. Thank you.
Member Skoll.
Councilor Shevlin said a lot of it, but again, I agree with Council Cunningham, his suggestion there, maybe there should be a mid-year review. We do get quarterly information. And in the monthly packets that we get, the second half of the month for the council meetings, there's also a financial report there too.
Yeah.
And so there's monthly information that gets disseminated out to everybody has access to it.
Yeah, and I can, Those finance memos are mainly written for council. I can extract those and send those out to budget committee members as well. And within those packets that come out each month, there's monthly financial reports for
Right.
council reviews. So I can add that to the city budget committee as well. You can get a monthly report, as well as the financial memo is just some thoughts generally of what's happening financially within the city that I put in a memo along with Catherine, and we send those out every month to council.
And we've talked about this, you and I had a brief conversation about this. I have a friend who's the mayor down in Southern California, and basically, they had some of the same questions come up. And I know there's a cost to this, and there's a little bit of work to it, but they actually have a financial dashboard as part of their website.
Yeah.
So at any given time, you can look on the website and get a feel for what's going on with the city. And I think that's worked for him and the city council there very well to, so the public can see what's going on in real time. But there is a cost, there is an effort to that, and I'm not sure of the true value there.
Yeah, that's an open question. A lot of it is a lot of detail with no context, but it's certainly an area we can look into and explore what the costs would be for that.
Member Barry.
I think this is a really good discussion. Thank you, everybody. I like the idea of a financial dashboard, but I also like the idea that there's the option that we do have a mid-term or mid-year or maybe 3/4 through the year where the council or the chair and maybe the city manager and the financial director can have a conversation and decide if there's a need for us all to get together and just touch base and hear any updates, especially with the economy getting tighter and tighter. And I think you mentioned that the staff is working on some options and looking at strategies. So it would be nice to hear it somewhere during the year. That's my thought.
Okay, noted.
Member Andrew.
Thank you. As a layperson on the group, but I have a technical background. When I'm explaining technical stuff to other people, sometimes their eyes glaze over. And so that forces me to slow down and explain it in a way that anybody can understand. And there's a lot of value to that. And I appreciate being allowed to be the layperson in this context to ask those dumb questions. A panel of experts would be excellent to hear from. But again, this is a citizen oversight, and it's important to have those opportunities to ask those dumb questions. One thing that I am interested in that I don't see happening much is if somebody sees an issue with the budget or with anything in the city that has a spot to speak. I see a lot of up or down votes on whole packages. I never see a motion to make an amendment or to consider a minor change. And I think that would be a good opportunity to open up the debates about some of these individual line items that sometimes we discuss. And then we can have that debate and we can decide whether there's value to making that adjustment or not. But if all we see is protest over the entire package, then that's more challenging to do that end of the process up or down vote over. So, thank you.
Member Cunningham.
I believe I pushed an amendment last year. It was declined.
I did have a question I wanted to ask, maybe to finance, maybe to Gina. In the budget message, there's the comment about a central focus in the year ahead is shoring up the general fund. I was kind of hoping as I was going through the budget that items would jump out at me that were in response to that, but I didn't really get a sense of what that was. Can you share on what those maybe key items would be in the year ahead to help that?
Oh, go ahead.
So in terms of shoring up the general fund, so let me go, two things. In terms of the budget that you see in front of you today, it is a fairly status quo budget. There's not a lot of ad packages in this budget document. It's one of the ways that we as staff address some of the issues within the general fund. The other piece of that is what I had mentioned earlier is that I took over as city manager on April 1st. But what I want to do is to spend some time doing a deeper dive into that general fund to take a look at what are those areas that both on the expense side as well as looking at the revenue side for what kind of modifications need to be made, and then come back with some of those recommendations so that we've done it in a more holistic and strategic approach than doing it from a piecemeal approach.
Okay.
Does that help answer the question a little bit?
I think so. It sounds like maybe next year's budget is going to have some significant differences in it.
I
Depending
would
on what
say
you see.
yes. I would say
Okay.
yes. And that depends upon what comes out of this kind of strategic analysis. I don't know what the answers are yet because we haven't, the staff team hasn't concluded their work yet. But depending upon what comes out of that, certainly next year's budget would reflect whatever those outcomes are. And ultimately, that decision is going to need to be made by the city council. So if it's looking at additional revenue, that's a conversation that the city council needs to have. But then next year's fiscal year budget would include whatever those outcomes are and what the city council has decided to do.
Okay, thank you.
Chair.
Member Shevlin.
Gina, may I challenge that it wouldn't be too soon to find anything that we could find savings this year? Would that be correct? In the the budget that we would be voting on for 26, 27?
Are you asking if there's savings that could be found in this year's budget? Yeah, certainly. I'd say that's up for, that's certainly up for conversation. What I would say is that, staff really took a real conservative and hard line this year when they were looking at their own individual departments and looking at areas in which they can find efficiencies. And I think you'll hear from some of the departments when they come before you and do their presentations, areas in which they have found those efficiencies. This budget committee can certainly have conversations as part of this budget committee deliberations as part of your process about what changes you may be interested in seeing. But I think what you'll hear from the departments when they come forward is areas where they have made some modifications.
I believe what I intended to imply was that as your team works through over the next, let's say, 6 to 8 months or whatever your timeline is to begin to look at efficiencies and how you can change things, I'm just challenging. Certainly, it could be possible that some of those savings could occur in this budget year.
Yes, sorry, I misunderstood your question. Yes, absolutely. There may be that, we're, like I said, that we've already started and kicked off this process. Over the next 6 months, we're not going to wait. If there are opportunities to make those savings and to do that now or to make some modifications in terms of how operations are occurring, we will do that now. We're not going to wait till next fiscal year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, we can proceed on, and we'll roll into the department. This is really the operating budget of the city, and I'll turn it over to Catherine to talk about the next few departments.
Thank you, Keith. Next, we move into our department presentations, starting this evening with Policy Administration, Parks and Recreation, Library, Public Safety, and Transportation. And then the balance of our department presentations will be at our next meeting on Tuesday, May 12th. Just a moment, having a problem with my clicker. Okay, perfect. Just a quick note surrounding the format for our department presentations for this evening. First, we'll have the department directors give a brief overview of their departments, followed by the format illustrated here. Altogether, it tells a story of how we get from the fiscal year 25-26 amended budget to the fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget, highlighting any significant changes. Overall, the operating department budgets remain relatively status quo and reflect overall only a 5% increase over the prior fiscal year. Included in this 5% increase is a handful of ad packages sprinkled throughout, an anticipated 10% increase in health and liability insurance costs, and overall rising costs for services. As we navigate through the department presentations, feel free to jump in and ask any questions along the way. First up this evening is policy and administration, which includes administration, finance, information technology, legal, and human resources. No large changes here throughout policy and administration. Overall, all of these budgets reflect a status quo. Administration includes a decrease in community service programs for the Homeless Initiative Grant, limited to the prior fiscal year, in total bringing them from fiscal year 25-26 amended budget of $2.7 million to a fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget of $2.5 million, with no change in FTE. Finance reflects a status quo budget, bringing them from a fiscal year 25-26 amended budget of $2.4 million to a fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget of $2.5 million, with no change in FTE. Information technology includes an increase in materials and services for a cybersecurity project and a project to enhance website accessibility to meet federal requirements. It includes also a capital outlay project to upgrade aging equipment in council chambers. Otherwise, no large changes here. In total, bringing them from a fiscal year 25-26 amended budget of $2 million to a fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget of $1.9 million, with no change in FTE. Next, legal reflects a status quo budget as well. In total, bringing them from a fiscal year 25-26 amended budget of $900,000 to a fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget also of $900,000, with no change in FTE.
I have a quick question regarding legal,
Yes.
and I actually meant to ask this the other day. I actually started to, and I got sidetracked. For the activity that you offload in handling city cases and everything, where does that show up in the budget?
In my salary.
Seriously?
For the items that the legal department represents the city in, yes, it's reflected in our salary.
Okay.
We don't do, unlike some government entities where they will do billable hours or a recording of their time, we don't do that.
So no breakout, it's just rolled into it.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Member Barry.
To follow up on that, I noticed that from time to time you'll talk about we'll hire outside expertise. Is that here in this budget or is that somewhere else?
We keep a line item for outside legal services that's included in the materials and services budget, which isn't proposing a change.
Thank you.
Okay, next is human resources. This also includes risk management. This reflects an overall increase over the prior year attributable to increases in liability insurance, software, and outside legal counsel for our collective bargaining process. In total, bringing them from a fiscal year 25-26 amended budget of $1.4 million to a fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget of $1.5 million, with no change in FTE. And that concludes the policy administration portion of this presentation. Before we transition to Parks and Recreation, are there any questions?
Member Skull.
Just have a comment on the the legal activity is increasing, and the city attorney has actually been able to keep the staff at a minimal level, and I think that's a great thing. I think that's going to get more difficult as time moves forward, as I see things on the horizon. The other mention, a shout out I'd like to give is to human resources. The amount of, there's been a lot of turnover and a lot of hiring and activities and all that, and the performance numbers there I see are pretty high for, and they're doing 1,500 and 1,200 processed applications, 500 interviews, and there's 4 people. I think that's phenomenal. So, great job. And, you know, it's probably going to continue to increase over time, but there's a lot going on there in that department. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Next up is Parks and Recreation, for which I'll turn it over to Parks and Recreation Director Megan Bigjohn.
Hello, everybody. I'm here to celebrate my 1-month anniversary with you all today. Very excited to be here. Budget Committee and council members, I'd like to thank you for this time to share our Parks and Recreation budget story. Together with 2 divisions, we make up 4 service areas, which are Recreation, Community Center, Arts, and Parks. We have the pleasure of providing and creating gathering spaces, social activities, and learning opportunities for all ages of our community. Get switch a slide for me, thank you. The general services is our admin and recreation portion, and our recreation staff is a team members of 3. The recreation programming provides beginning classes, summer camps, health and wellness classes, gardening, athletics, and as a reservation, as well as 15 amazing community events. Our offerings, you can learn to make bread, make stained glass, learn to play soccer, and even more. And arts and culture is also underneath our umbrella. In the last year, we had those 10 beautiful hearts that were displayed now around the city. 5 of them remain with us. And right now, we're currently working on the project, the Boone's Ferry Art Piece, which has a theme of Essence of the River. The Community Center is a social hub for many residents. Here, you can learn for free to play dominoes, take a fitness class, join the book club, play virtual reality, or take a virtual trip, and play bingo twice a month. I had the honor of calling out bingo my first week here, and I'm already signed up for November. I really highly recommend that. Vital services that they provide, though, are nutritional services and social services. 3 times a week, meals are cooked, and not only do these provide food, but the social connection that the community needs. There's an average of 8,500 meals that are served annually, and currently we're maxed out on all the food that we can provide currently with our service and staff. Part of the service is home-delivered meals. 19,000 meals per year are those that are delivered to those who are housebound. And that's just not food that's delivered. That is a friendly face that meets them at the door to say hi and check in to see how they're doing. The other honorable thing that we do, though, is none of the food that we create is wasted. It is used at the center. It's freezed. The fresh food is freezed and extended those meals to the home services. It's pretty awesome. The social services that we provide services and resources for legal aid, support groups, Medicare to Medicaid, affordable housing, and even referrals for home maintenance, just to name a few. And Sadie, who provides those resources, is very much a gem to our agency. The Parks team is a team of 12 with some seasonal support, and they are known for keeping the parks clean and cared for. In some ways, their work is the easiest to see, but what is not always visible is all the other tasks that they provide. They support over 35 events throughout the year, from shelter reservations to tournaments to our own department events as well as city events. They help coordinate work parties and provide support for Eagle Scouts. They manage projects like the Memorial Playground that's being installed right now, and they remove compost and deliver zoo dew. Yes, that is dew from the zoo to our community garden. They work with Public Works and other departments on other projects. And another service that we get to be able to be a part of is Victory Academy. Students from that organization come to the parks once a week during the fall and springtime, as well as in recreation staff to be able to learn educational opportunities of the work we do. Our team also supports 2 community boards and 1 commission. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board is not only provides support to our team, but they volunteer at events and work parties. They also manage the Community Opportunities Grant that provides $25,000 a year to our community groups. The Arts and Culture and Heritage Commission helps procure public art and also supports our cultural events. They administer the Community Cultural Events Program grant that also provides $25,000 a year to the community. And lastly, the Kitakata Sister City Advisory Board. This advisory board helps sustain and strengthens the city of Wilsonville's longstanding cultural relationship with Kitakata, Japan. And last year, I'm sure that you got the update that we had 13 middle schooler students that came to be able to visit City of Wilsonville for 10 days. Our staff, along with the board members, found host families, provided school visits, trips to Portland, and a welcome and farewell dinners. We also provide support to the Corain Memorial and the Wilsonville Community Seniors Incorporated, and they're the ones that host the bingo, so we really are thankful to them. So lastly, I'm happy that I get to be here to share this great pride of all the heart and the hard work that goes into creating community spaces and activities to help make Wilsonville home. For our next budget, we reviewed our recreational historical participation data and felt we were able to adjust our projections of charges of services to 20% to help offset the costs, as well as increase our opportunities for grants and sponsorship by 22%, totaling $84,000. The Parks team is already working towards transitioning maintenance practices to be more efficient, evaluating service levels and trying to streamline our effectiveness, knowing that we have about 26 acres coming on in 2028. So we're getting ready for that. Really proud to be here, and thank you for your time today. Does anybody have any questions?
Member Beach?
So you weren't here. This is my first budget meeting 2 years ago. Someone brought this up, and I don't think it's happened yet. So the Memorial Park, this is a baseball question, so it's kind of like this. But if you know the down the lower area, they got the 3 baseball fields that all back to each other. And someone wrote a letter, I think, 2 years ago asking about the safety issues because we all back to each other. And we had a game there a couple weeks ago, and it was like bombs away. Like people were ducking for cover with foul balls. And then someone brought it up at last year's budget meeting and I remember the person who was in your job before said, yeah, we're addressing it. And here we are 3 years later, it hasn't been addressed yet. So I'm wondering, is that on the horizon?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
It is coming, yes. Actually is budgeted for.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Member Shevlin?
I have a question. First of all, welcome to the team.
Thank
We're sure glad to
you.
have you. So this year, on July 4th, is our country's 250th celebration, birthday, anniversary. You don't have to give any details, but I hope you and your team are working on some special celebrations.
I'm sure they are. I will double check. Yes, we're definitely working on all the events coming up, and that's a big one. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question, and it may be more of a capital than a maintenance, but I'm not sure. Looks like we're going to add 8 acres to the parks with the Beckman Creek Interceptor Trail, but I know that's also a sewer extension project, and I'm curious if the sewer operating is going to contribute anything towards the upkeep of that thoroughfare.
Keith, are you able to offer?
I have to look into a little bit that. I'll look into that, and then we'll come back when we talk about the CIP budget. We'll explore the funding for each of the projects at that time. So let me make a note and get back to you on that one.
Thank you.
Member Skritzmeyer?
Yes, looking at the positions listed here, I know that there's a social worker who works at the community center, and I'm wondering if that comes out, it doesn't look like it comes out of your budget, so I'm wondering what that falls under, or if I'm just not recognizing the position title.
Keith, are you able to answer any of that?
Well, I think that there is this.
It must be Sadie.
Yes,
Yes, that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah, I guess you could explore her role.
Yeah. Her role, I do believe it comes out of our budget, but we do get money from Clackamas County to help with our food services, though. But yes, her role is quite instrumental in the work that we provide. And as you see, the FTE, it's not a full, but yes, it does come out of our budget. Did that answer your question in a roundabout way?
It comes out of her budget, and it ultimately comes out of the general fund.
Got it, but it's not one of the positions listed here, correct?
It is.
It is, oh, okay.
It is. I apologize. I misunderstood the question. Yes, it is.
It's the information and referral.
Referral specialist. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience while I answered that.
Mayor?
I've known Sadie for years. She's critical to the city. And she hooked me into helping educate the community on a number of things when I was practicing here as a lawyer. So that's a really important position to maintain. And the only other thing I want to add is welcome, and thank you for your first presentation. We're lucky Westland lost you.
Well, thank you for welcoming me. I appreciate it.
Member Cunningham.
Yeah, this is probably more of a comment, something for the budget committee to consider, and especially the city council as we think about policy going forward. Our current park land acres are 293 acres, and we're adding 25.64 in the next 2 years. That's almost a 10% increase in park acreage. And at the same time, we're having conversations around local levies for park maintenance and a discussion around a utility tax for parks upkeep. You know, the budget message at the beginning, the warning that's in there talks about, you know, the key policy decisions that we have to look at and consider going forward. I know that the city is known for its beautiful parks. I know that it's a crowning achievement or a brag point for our city. But we also have to be realistic about what we can and can't support going forward. If we're adding 10% over the next few years, and we're also talking about extracting more money from our citizens, we have to be extremely careful about what we're doing there. The budget message now for the second year is pointed at that issue of the general fund being bled dry from that and other things, but that's a major contributor. I love our park system. I love our Parks and Recs department. But I think that given where we are at with those issues on the horizon, we need to have that on our radar to be very careful about expanded services, expanded park acreage going forward. It's been a practice in the past of the city to take over neighborhood HOA maintained and run parks. And if we continue to do things like that, we're going to continue to add the acreage. It's going to require more FTE to maintain those parks and those facilities. And I don't see it as being sustainable. So that's just my comments on it. And I'll keep banging that drum every time I get a chance.
Yeah.
I would like to follow on that with a question of, is the increased park acreage expected to be maintainable with our current staffing levels?
We are going to do our best. We've had a staffing analysis that came out last year and that's why the fee came up as an option. But that's where we're trying to do efficiencies with what we have now and trying to streamline that and just find other avenues.
Can I jump in,
Yeah.
maybe provide some context to both of your points? These are exactly the things that this team is going to be looking at. What is the acreage that we're going to be taking on? What are the needed expenses? How do you do that in an efficient way? Are there additional revenue sources? Maybe we don't look at additional revenue sources. Maybe there's some tough decisions that have to be made. But this is all the work that team under Steve Reimer's direction with the finance team is going to be taking a look at in its totality of here's the Parks and Recreation Department, and I'm just using them as an example because we've got many other services, as you all know, that are funded out of the general fund, is to take a look at each of those services, what the existing needs are, and where are the needs on horizon, and kind of do a deep dive into that, and then come back to you with some options.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, to move into the numbers really quick, what this reflects is, as Megan mentioned, it reflects a status quo budget with just one ad package, most notably for general and community services. The ad package is for security cameras in Memorial Park, in total bringing them from a fiscal year 25-26 amended budget of $2.2 million to a fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget of $2.4 million with no change in FTE. Next, park maintenance includes an increase in utilities attributable to additional green spaces and increases in vendor costs, in total bringing them from fiscal year 25-26 amended budget of $3 million to a fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget of $3.1 million with no change in FTE. And that concludes our presentation for Parks and Recreation. Are there any questions for Megan before we move on? Okay, thank you, Megan.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. This may be a good time, and we have a natural breaking point here, maybe for a quick break.
So if the Budget Committee would like to take a break, we just need a motion to recess for a specific amount of time, maybe 10 minutes to stretch your legs. So just need a motion and a second and then a vote.
I move to recess for 10 minutes.
Second.
Motion is passed.
Motion has been made and seconded, and now ask for the
Motion's
vote.
been made and seconded. Can we vote on that?
Sure.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion is passed.
So we'll reconvene in 10 minutes.
We appreciate your
You gotta bring Ethan up here.
Amanda, do we need any language?
Okay. I called to reconvene the budget meeting at 8:08 PM.
Thank you. Next up, we have a library, for
question?
which I'll turn it over to Library Director Shasta Sasser.
Before we start
Oh,
though, sorry,
yes.
Mayor said he has a question.
Thank you.
It's not a question, just a comment. Well, keep eating. Ms. Roja, you know, when you're doing this high-level look at the general fund and it would be helpful to incorporate AI cost savings maybe, to examine that. Councilor Shevlin and I went to an LOC conference about AI. I know there's been a lot of development very quickly, and there may be expenditures on top of it, so there may be savings on one end, but it might be expensive. So that analysis as part of that look would be helpful, I think, for council to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. We can include that as part of it, and Steve is here in the room, so I'm sure he'll make note of it.
Thank you.
Just kind of on top of that, I don't think this is maybe necessarily related to the budget committee, but if city council maybe has any guidelines or limitations on their use of AI, it is kind of a heated debate in terms of how it's used, how it's incorporated. Just maybe something to consider.
Okay, I'm Shasta Sasser. I'm the library director. Thanks for having me here to talk about the library and the library budget. As usual, I like to give a little context by talking about what we've done this year and then move into our plan for the upcoming year. So library services this year, we've had some technology replacement. Our library catalogs were all replaced. We eliminated overdue fines along with Westland Library since we share a school district. We finished up our strategic plan, and for what we had the resources and means to accomplish, we have. And we're undertaking an improvement for cellular signal in our building. It sits very low, and the cell phone signal is not great. We got a new book bike and a new mural in the children's room. And I do want to point out that the improved cellular signal is partially funded by the Wilsonville Public Library Foundation. The book bike was funded with a Wilsonville Metro Community Enhancement Grant and the Friends of the Library, and our mural was funded by entirely by the Wilsonville Public Library Foundation. So we're really looking at ways to find other pockets of money, grants, to get these extra services for the library. I'm not going to go over all of these. I called this a celebration of statistics for fiscal year '25, but there are a couple I do want to highlight. One is that if you look at the library visits and subtract our holiday closures, that averages out to about 500 visitors a day at the library. So we are a very busy place. We had over 475 in-library programs, more than one a day, and 185 outreach events. So for our budget story this year, mostly status quo. Materials and services were reduced due to some one-time projects that we completed this fiscal year. And we don't have any ad packages, so very much status quo for us. I did want to include this. This really got to my heart about the importance of outreach and community building. It was a thank you card from some outreach we did to Autumn Park. And it says, thank you for giving us support on reading and giving us books. I hope that one day we can help you guys in something. So I love that. I want to give back now that I've gotten services from the library. And then finally, just looking ahead, we hope to begin a new strategic planning process in fiscal year 27-28. We're going to take this year to kind of reflect on how the last process went, what we were able to achieve, and what we hope to achieve in the next one. And then we will be doing some fundraising efforts with the Wilsonville Public Library Foundation to hopefully do some new improvements to the children's patio. And that concludes my portion of the library's budget, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Member Barry.
Thank you for your presentation. I love the library. I love the Wilsonville Library in particular. And I really like that you highlighted, I think it said 4,500 volunteer hours.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have a really successful volunteer program going on. And when you have volunteers participating, they become kind of stakeholders to the library, but they're also helping the city save money.
Yes, 100%.
Nice job.
Yeah, we have a lot of volunteers. We're very lucky to have them. And they volunteer for years and years and years a lot of the time. So great community support in that way.
Member Beach.
I have a comment and then two-part question. So first comment is I take my kid there all the time. He's at Spanish immersion, and you have a wonderful Spanish section, which has really helped being able to check out those books. Second thing is I'm pretty sure I owed 10 cents on late fees. Did that wipe out the old
They all
fines?
got wiped out.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't owe that. Okay, that's perfect.
So you're good to go.
Yeah, I got a book
Good
in
standing
a
at the
day
library.
late. Second though, how much money annually did we typically bring in on those fines?
So it used to be a larger amount, and over the years, we've recognized that the fines were a barrier to access, particularly for families. You have a family, they check out a lot of books, their account's blocked after just a couple days, and they can no longer access some of our services. So over the last couple of years, we've reduced that line item, and we've offered vouchers for fine reduction, and we've done like, you pay half, we'll pay half kinds of things. So it was down to revenue of about $5,000 when we went fine-free. And over time, it had gotten to that point.
Did that eliminate work that other people, people had to do to kind of facilitate that too and free them up to do other things?
There's not a lot, it was all automated, the
Okay.
fine assessment. And for anybody wondering if there is a penalty, at a certain point, if you keep it too long, it charges you to replace the item. So you still have to bring the items back. There's just not that 10 cents a day anymore.
Any other questions?
As Shasta mentioned, the library reflects no large changes in total, bringing them from fiscal year 25-26 amended budget of $3 million to a fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget of $3.1 million, with no change in FTE. And that concludes our presentation for the library. Before we move on, are there any final questions for Shasta?
Mayor.
Not a question, just a comment. My first job was at a library. You've raised my son, essentially, and the access. To me, we brag about our parks, but also I think we have the best library around. And I'm very proud of it, and I enjoy it. And it's a great place to, if you need to go to work, it's really cutting edge. But thank you for everything you do.
Thank
It's
you.
just a wonderful library. You
Thank
should be
you.
proud of leading it, so thank you.
Member Engel?
I know this is a short-term budget. I'm just curious if over the next 3 years, there's anything that the library is looking at that is popping up on the roadmap for long-term expenditures.
We have like a long-term staffing plan, but we are trying to do the best we can with the resources we have in the moment. Teen services is an area that we would like to at some point look at expanding. But for now, that's it. We will have new self-checks. That's a county-wide project that's on the horizon in the next couple of years.
Thank you. You guys are one of the best parts in town.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Member
Shasta.
Skritzmeyer?
Yes, I was wondering if you could just highlight some of the services that people can access at the library that don't necessarily cost the city money. I'm thinking about like when WIC comes or,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we have WIC services that comes. We have DHS, Department of Health and Human Services, that comes and signs people up for benefits. We've worked with Clackamas County on a number of early literacy initiatives at the library. We also, this sounds antiquated, but we have fax capabilities at the library, and a lot of government places and very specific places do require fax. So that's a service that we still provide for free. We have printing, we have computers, Wi-Fi. We have study space. Yeah, I could go on for another hour, but yeah.
Member Skoll?
It's a great library. Thank you for your efforts, but let's not forget the library of things.
Yes, library things, one of my favorites. If you need a pressure washer or a knife sharpener, we've got you covered. You don't have to go out and buy it. You can come to the library and borrow it. We have tabletop telescopes, all kinds of things. So come check it out. We have a seed library and lots of books.
I don't have a question. I just want to say after years of inactivity, I re-got my library card, checked out a book, so I'm excited to go back down the library path, and it looks great in there, and the service was
Yay.
wonderful.
Well, welcome back. We're happy to have you.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have public safety, which includes law and code enforcement and municipal court, for which I'll turn it over to Police Chief Jed Wilson.
Good evening. Thank you for your time tonight, and thank you for allowing me to speak on this topic. My goal is to just kind of provide some of the services that we currently offer with the money that we're receiving. Okay, so we are still, this is a very similar slide to probably what you saw last year, but we are still operating under a community-focused philosophy. We still have, although the person has changed, we still have our dedicated behavioral health clinician in our police department, which I think has been an amazing resource for this community and has since done a lot of partnering with our new peer support specialist, which has been great for offering services and reducing the amount of non-law enforcement calls that our deputies have to respond to. We collaborate a lot with various other city departments, specifically oftentimes code compliance and our traffic concerns team to address various community concerns, traffic, parking, et cetera. We partner with various city departments for events across the city, such as the community bike ride, the tree lighting, Party in the Park, National Night Out, et cetera. Our school resource officer is also an excellent resource, that's why it's in the name, I guess, for our community, especially our youth. Our current SRO this is his 5th year in that assignment, and that assignment is a 5-year assignment. After that, we open it back up and let other people apply, and I'm happy to report that he reapplied and is going to be taking that job for another 5 years because he that's the role for that particular person, and he does a fantastic job, and I hear nothing but praises from him, about him. Our priority is obviously answering 911 calls, is something that we do and prioritize, but, so the public safety and service. But I think what I'm really trying to enforce with the staff that I have right now is a customer-focused relationship. We get complaints from citizens about certain problems, and those, I focus on addressing those problems as they come in and making it a priority, obviously triaging based on importance and safety, but solving those problems or doing what we can to help solve those problems, because we are here to serve citizens of Wilsonville, and their problems become our problems. And so that's been my goal since I came in January. That goes right into the problem-oriented policing. And again, we have our behavioral health clinician, which I just can't say enough about. It just really helped provide our deputies some more time, as well as offering some great resources. I've tried to come in and evaluate what had been going on in the department before I was here, and I didn't want to come in and make a bunch of sweeping changes, but I have started to set some expectations with the deputies. And one of those is to make sure that as they're not assigned on a call for service, that they're maintaining those routine patrols throughout various neighborhoods, through the parks, through business areas, et cetera. I think that is a great crime deterrent. I think the citizens like seeing the police cars come through, knowing that they're looking out for their safety. Another focus of mine has been to really look at our staffing and how it's being utilized and our scheduling. And I've already started to make some changes to the scheduling to create some better efficiencies, to utilize the amount of personnel we have during our busy times, et cetera. And I'm going to, based on unions and contracts, I have to do it at certain times, but I'm going to continue to make some adjustments as we move along. So obviously, Wilsonville contracts its police services with the sheriff's office. One of the major benefits for the city is that they don't have to fund all of these things that are up on your screen currently. There is a cost for those shared within the personnel costs and some allocated costs that the city pays. However, anytime the city needs a SWAT team, anytime they need a drone or an aircraft, canine dogs, et cetera, it's right there and available, as well as hiring for overtime when we have to backfill positions. The city doesn't have to overstaff their FTE to be able to make up those spots when somebody takes vacation or calls in sick. We can utilize the county deputies to bring them in for that coverage. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that happened recently. In April, the Wilsonville Police Department partnered with Charbonneau Community and was able to help them obtain a grant for some equipment for a new program they are developing called the Charbonneau Walker Watch, which is basically a community-based crime watch, but also neighborhood folks are going out and getting some exercise at the same time. And so they were able to get some safety vests for those folks. And then a soon-to-be-retired Wilsonville PD detective, Chad Kaiser, was selected by the Oregon Child Abuse Summit to receive the Jeff Burlew Beacon of Light Award for his impacts in the community as it relates to child abuse and human trafficking investigations. And he's been a leader in that area of law enforcement. And we'll be sad to see him go here in a couple of months. That pretty much concludes what I had to say. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
I have a question, Chair. Oh, go ahead, please.
Thank you for sharing this. This is wonderful. When I just look at this budget breakdown, I kind of see a number that sticks out to me, and that's the other professional tech services with an increase of 255%. Can one of you share a little more about that?
just a sec, I don't know exactly what fell into that category, so.
That's the police contract in total.
It's page 165, is that right?
The other professional technical services, so it went from 7,600 to 27,000. We included some budget authority in that line item for the towing of RVs, which we've had to do over the course of this last year. So it looks like a big percentage, you know, it just gives us budget authority when we need to do those tows.
Member Skull?
Calls for service, I was kind of curious, it was tracking pretty flat, 22 through 24, and then jumped in the 25 timeframe. Any idea what's in that?
There's a lot of factors that come into that. One of the things that's, I think can be a benefit for the city of Wilsonville is, although it's nice to maintain staffing for long periods of time, but it's also nice to get fresh faces in. And sometimes you get folks that are much more active coming to work in the city than maybe somebody that just left. And so in those calls for services, I'm not exactly sure which one you're looking at, but more likely than not, it includes everything that they're doing. So that includes traffic stops, community contacts, all those sorts of things. So a big factor in that is we've gotten recently some really young, motivated deputies that are out there making a lot of contacts with folks, and that has raised that. I don't know if within that timeline, if that's when we added the second traffic car or not, but that would also significantly increase that.
Okay.
Member Shevlin?
Thank you. If I remember correctly, the behavioral health specialist salary was funded through a grant or monies from outside, or is it from Clackamas County, or?
That doesn't fall in my budget. That person does work out of the PD.
Are you talking about the peer support specialist or the behavioral health?
Behavioral health.
The behavioral health specialist position is actually listed in the law enforcement budget. However, that person is not part of the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. They are part of Clackamas County, but they are listed as a separate position. It's not included in our contract with the Sheriff's Office. But we do pay for them out of just general fund dollars, I believe, unless there's a grant associated with it.
No grant.
All right, thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you for everything you do. One thing that I've asked over the years reoccurring is the use of e-bikes or bikes to be more accessible maybe for kids like middle schoolers getting out of school and being near schools and all that. I know we were investing in those bikes. How often do you use those bikes, and how are they used in the community now?
Just to clarify, you're talking about law enforcement using the bikes or community members using?
Law enforcement.
Oh. So the Wilsonville Police Department specifically does not have e-bikes. We do have, human-powered bikes that we utilize, and we have a handful of folks right now that are police certified. Yet there's a special class that we have to go to be able to operate those, and that's I like to utilize those for any community events that we're going to be at. But also just today, our two traffic guys decided to hop on those. It was a nice day, go patrol some parks and do some contacts through those. We just have to be kind of careful because obviously, depending on what our staffing is like, if somebody's on one of those bikes and there's a call across town, it's pretty difficult for them to get to. So we just kind of have to coordinate that based on our staffing, but they still get utilized.
I just throw a pitch. I know now that you're throwing in staff coverage, I can understand that, but it's pretty neat. The kids think you guys are rock stars. I've never seen stickers passed out so quickly from Clackamas County Sheriff's Office to kids. And to see one of you riding a bike by them as they're walking home, because there's a lot of reported bullying sometimes as kids leave, especially in the middle school age. To see one of you coming by, that might deter things. I just throw that out there as when resources are there, if you can consider that. I've been saying this for a while, and I'll just keep saying it, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely correct. So I'll take that in consideration. We'll see what we can do about that.
Any other questions? Member Engel.
So this is one of the biggest expenses in the general fund. And I was noticing it went up by 45% from 2023 to present. The police protection line and the professional technical services line combined went up quite a bit. So I was just curious if you could describe what's driving that and like in particular, what kind of extra services we're seeing as a result of that.
I mean, that's almost entirely personnel. Personnel costs have just gone up. Like it's been stated before, health insurance coverage for the county went up 10% this year. Contracts for the union, add to pays, personnel costs have just gone up quite a bit. And as I know the city council heard a month-ish or so ago, maybe a little longer, there was an accounting error essentially from the county that was not, from the county finance department, that was not accurately reflecting all the add to pays that the deputies get. And it's very hard to calculate because everybody's individualized. That has, over this past year, that has been realized and corrected. And so that carries forward into next year's budget as well.
Thank you.
Member Cunningham.
Yeah, so to that point, you know, with costs increasing for our public safety, and the discussion around, you know, what we do about rising costs and how we backfill that with, you know, looking at our general fund. You know, I think it would be worthwhile in that to at least have a cursory look at, you know, the cost benefit analysis of continuing a contract with Clackamas County. From my guess, if I had to guess, kind of knowing what I know about it, I still think that we're getting a heck of a deal compared to if we had our own police department. But I think our citizens, our city would be interested in just kind of seeing what that looks like and being able to display that, you know, continuously display that. You know, personnel costs are going to be expensive if you run it yourself or if you contract, I think. And but I still think, you know, given the resources that were shown on the screen of all those different things, I mean, you talk about just a property room, just an officer goes out, stops somebody, arrests them, has to take their bike and hold on to it while they're in jail. That's got to go into a property room. That's got to be, you know, handed over to somebody, a clerk in the room who, you know, logs it and reports it, signs it back out to somebody. I mean, you can see just on that one tiny example, and then let alone if the person has, you know, any kind of evidence to be used in court. Now that has to go through a whole bunch of different processes. If you want to get into evidence, you know, forensic analysis, things like that, those costs, all of a sudden you have this one little stop for, you know, a guy riding on the wrong side of the street on his bike with a baggie of dope, and the costs explode pretty enormously. And so to have all that stuff kind of built in, if I had to guess, it would be a pretty good cost saving. But it's definitely something that I think we just continue to kind of keep our eye on as we grow. There's probably some break-even point for a city when it hits a certain population threshold that maybe that becomes something one day where we have an official Wilsonville Police Department. But I'm not sure that at 27,000 that we've gotten there. So thank you for the presentation, and keep doing the good work you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor.
To that point, you know, I, for a long time, didn't appreciate Clackamas County Sheriff's Office contract. For years, I said, well, why don't we have our own police force? And so I did the deep dive, and I'm totally convinced that it's the best deal around for us. But I agree with Councilor Cunningham that maybe things would change. But to his point, when we're doing this high level looking at things, is there a way to find funding specific for law enforcement? In other words, could we go out into the community and ask for a levy? because some of these levies that are law enforcement, TV, F&R funding is often, people will support those. And it's something to analyze, is that something worthwhile exploring? Is that a possibility to find that funding? I know people don't want to see increased taxes, but if we're trying to preserve our public safety, which is critical for our community, I'd like to see all options for that and how that might play in helping the overall general fund, so.
Yeah, let me just answer that a little bit. Part of the deep dive into the general fund will look at all options. Everything will be on the table in terms of looking at additional revenue sources and coming back with some options for consideration.
Member Scholl.
Just for some background information regarding that, so it gives me an opportunity to kind of think through it. Your officers are unionized, and we contract. Do we negotiate on a yearly basis? And how often is your cycle? Is it a 2-year, 3-year?
For their contract, the union contract, it's a 3-year cycle typically.
3-year cycle, okay. And our cycle here at the city?
It's just a rolling contract.
Oh, it's just a rolling contract?
Just a rolling contract.
Okay.
So what we receive is kind of a price quote, and then we pay based on actuals.
And I will mention that this personnel budget in this is factored on every FTE I have being topped out on their pay scale with all of the incentives added to it, which would be an extremely rare circumstance that I would have all my positions filled with topped out folks. But the problem is this last union contract was so intricate and so individualized that it would be essentially impossible for me to go through and individualize it for an entire year, because during that time, somebody hits an anniversary date and they get a significant increase. And so I think the sheriff's office thought it better just to kind of see what the worst case scenario would be. So I would imagine that the personnel cost, I'm hoping, is not as high as it is.
Okay, I'll go over the numbers really quick. So law and code enforcement, this includes the increase for contracted police services, in total bringing them from a fiscal year 25-26 budget of $7.5 million to a fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget of $8.8 million with no change in FTE. And finally, municipal court also reflects a status quo budget, as many of our other departments have, in total bringing them from fiscal year 25-26 budget of $250,000 to a fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget of $270,000 with no change in FTE. And that concludes our presentation for public safety. Are there any remaining questions for our chief?
Member Shevlin.
On the municipal court FTE, I know we have one judge. Is the .65 administrative support?
Yeah, so we have 2 administrative staff that run our court, and then our judge, I believe, is in there at 0.5 FTE. He joins us for half days twice a month on Wednesdays, or on Tuesdays.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our general fund 5-year financial forecast. I just want to touch on this just very briefly. The 5-year forecasts are included in the back of the budget document, starting on page 297. These forecasts reflect information as of a point in time, with revenues historically coming in higher than anticipated and expenditures historically coming in lower than anticipated. As City Manager Troja noted, while this budget is balanced, projections show expenditures outpacing revenues in future years. Addressing this will require thoughtful evaluations of efficiencies, surface levels, and potential new revenue options, all of which will be important policy discussions over this coming year. Are there any questions?
Member Engel.
One thing that would be interesting to see in these charts is a couple of years of backcasting as well, just so we can get a sense of the history that we're looking at.
That's great feedback. Thank you.
Any other questions? Member Beach?
So there's a former member of the Budget Committee, I think the last 2 years, has seen this chart and has asked the same question, so I'll speak for him. He's not here anymore. It always looks alarming when you have the kind of the peak of this year and then all of a sudden it goes down. And if I remember correctly, and I don't want to speak for you, that's because we don't know what's coming into the city in the next couple of years. New businesses could come in and opportunities like that. Is that why it kind of peaks this year and then it's going to go down? Or like, why do we think it's going to go down then next year?
Well, I think you might be referencing the Community Development Fund more, but they're very linked. They're linked. The General Fund and the Community Development Fund. The Community Development Fund, and we'll go over that next week, that's the one that's really conditioned on private development happening, and it's really hard. Like I kind of mentioned, it can be feast or famine. If we get a private development that comes in, it will jack up the permitting fees and save that fund. The general fund, it has its revenue sources is property tax and franchise fees and some overhead transfers in. So it's a little more predictable. That's why we're looking at it and we're seeing the expenses, inflationary and everything else, keep going up, as well as the historic use of general fund for capital projects like parks. That's all got to come from the general fund. HVAC repairs, roof replacements of the library. Those are all just existential possibilities in the future, and that's what makes the short-term and the longer-term predictions a little bit harder, because we don't really know, but we have a good sense of at least the revenue trend and the outpacing operating expenses, so.
So the kind of peak for this year's budget, then next year's budget going down, or not budget, but the general fund going down, is that just expenses we're expecting to bring that down?
Right.
So in fiscal year '27, I'm looking at the 5-year forecast
It's in the back.
chart and graph on page 303 of the budget document. That spike that you're seeing for fiscal year '27 includes those lease proceeds from Tualatin Valley.
Yeah,
Water
that's what the
District.
spike is.
Oh, okay, that's the spike. Okay.
As a one-time, and then, with the
And then
general fund,
normalizes.
we're budgeting, as full employment, which the city has, leveraged attrition and just not filling positions immediately as they come up. So there's always those cost savings, The budget is really the absolute not to exceed. The actuals will come in, especially expenses, under. We legally have to. We can't go above that. Revenue, we're generally typically more conservative on budgeting, and revenue, fingers crossed, comes in a little bit more. So the chart is always a little bit in motion. And that's one thing maybe, if we meet mid-year, you get a better sense of it's a dynamic system, as the future trends. But the trends are there, and there is a systemic delta that is going to open up eventually between expenses and revenues.
Member Cunningham?
Yeah, so you mentioned the Tualatin Valley Water District, the balloon payment that's coming in. Just to clarify, it was mentioned earlier, and I want to make sure I understand it all correctly. So that payment, that's larger than the $6.5 million though, right? The overall payment?
Yeah, it's $15 million.
And then the rest of that $15 million is going to the Beckman Bridge to pay out the debt on that
Correct,
project?
yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that we understood that, because I was looking at it, even last year and saw the 6.5, and in my mind, I had thought that $9 million had come along in the past, but it's a good clarification. It's a good understanding this year to know that, that debt service is being paid with the rest of it.
One of the just clarifying point to that too, as Frog Pond East in that area develops further and collects additional revenue. There's no housing out there yet. There's no development out there yet. There'll be an opportunity to collect that back and remit it to the general fund to the extent the development happens in Frog Pond. There's a Frog Pond fee, much like an SDC fee specific to that area, meant to pay for road improvements in the Beckman corridor project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Okay, so last but not least for tonight is transportation, for which I'll turn it over to our transit director, Dwight Brashear.
Good evening, Chair Russell, members of the Budget Committee. My name is Dwight Brashear. I am the Transit Director for SMART, a public transit agency owned and operated by the City of Wilsonville. We are one department, two disciplines. I'm joined this evening by my entire lead team. They didn't have to be here. Well, Scott did, but the others. We have Kelsey Lewis, who runs our grants and programs department. She manages that area. I have also Diana Kotler, who is our newest employee. She runs the operations, smart operations. She's our transit operations manager. And then, of course, most of you probably know Scott Simonton. He is our fleet services manager. So one department, two disciplines. All right. Just as a reminder, SMART is one of the top transit agencies in the country. Over the last 8 years, we have been ranked in the top 10 nationally for our quality of service and ease of use. So we put a lot of effort into our customer care, our customer service. Couple of things to note. Last year we were here. We were working on a yard expansion. You can see the top photo on the left. The building in the back is one of the few automated bus wash systems in the region. TriMet has a couple of those, but we are the only small agency in the region to have a automated bus wash. So it makes, it goes into that customer service, that presentation of our buses, making sure that we are well maintained. And then you can see just the tail end of our trolley there, which is very, very popular. And if you have been around Wilsonville here recently, we have entered it into regular service on the crosstown route. The students seem to absolutely love it, and the drivers enjoy it as well, and they ring the bell, and it's all good. So we completed our yard expansion, our customer service center. Some of you have probably been to the transit center there on Barber and seen the beautiful building there at the transit center, 5-story, 4/1 as they call it in the industry. It is completed. It's a beautiful building. I would argue probably the most beautiful building in the city of Wilsonville, and I may get some emails on that, but we'll see. That's been completed. We are hoping to open the customer service center probably in about a week or so, open it to customers. So we're adding some really nice amenities to that. And then, of course, our Bus on Shoulder project, Clackamas Town Center, kicked off Monday. I was out there Monday morning, caught the 5:30 out of Wilsonville Transit Center, being the driver. Had a good old time. And then on our ride back from Clackamas Town Center, the driver made me get off, by the way. I had to, because the driver had a break, and so I had to wait at the bus stop with some of my close friends. That being said, we carried a young lady who got on the bus, and she was just as happy as she could be, smiling. And so I started smiling because she was smiling, and we got to talking, and she works here at Brookdale in Wilsonville. And I think prior to our service starting Monday, it was taking her about 3 hours and probably 4 transfers to get to work. And so she was absolutely over the moon, which made me absolutely over the moon happy that we could provide that service. So the service is going very well, and so we'll have we have some preliminary numbers, but we'll have some good ridership numbers moving forward that I hope to come to a future work session and share with the council. And then we're still invested in electric buses, and then we've got some new compressed natural gas buses that came in, pictured here. And the drivers, this is the first time in a while, in the 40-some-odd years that I've been here, where drivers have just flocked to my office to tell me how much they love these particular buses. So I thank Scott and Kelsey and the team for actually finding a bus that drivers actually love to drive. They're very, very comfortable. I rode on this particular bus yesterday or Monday morning, and very, very comfortable. Okay. All right, so it's just some of the numbers. The Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, which is STIF, we're expecting, this is a conservative number. We backed it down a bit. So we're expecting about 3.2 million in STIF funds to come into the city. And those funds are to be used to enhance service, expand service, and we also use it to support the services that we created using STIF money. And then we're looking to buy some compressed natural gas buses, some cutaways. Those are the smaller buses. And so we'll use some a mix of STIF money, grants, and then local match. So the buses are still hard to come by, meaning we order a bus and sometimes it takes up to 2 years. When I first started here, it was about a 6-month to 8-month turnaround. Now it's taking us about 2 years in some cases to get the buses in here. So, but we have to keep buying them. So, all right, I think that's it.
Yes. Okay, so as Dwight mentioned, for Smart Transit, this includes an ad package request for transit management hardware, software, and electric cutaways, in total bringing them from fiscal year 25-26 amended budget of $10 million to a fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget of $10.2 million, with no change in FTE. And for fleet services, this includes replacements funded through Fleet's replacement reserve, as well as decreases for prior year one-time purchases, in total bringing them from a fiscal year 25-26 amended budget of $2.5 million to a fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget of $2.3 million, with no change in FTE. And that concludes our presentation for this evening. Are there any final questions for Dwight?
Any questions? I have a fair few, but I want to see if anybody else has anything. Okay. I have a few kind of maybe flip through the book. So on page 62, for the transit charges, there's a line which I assume was supposed to have some funds in it. It's for charges for services, which I think is for the shared route with chariots. Should that have a budgeted amount?
Charge services. I'm thinking that may be a contract that we had with Clackamas County, and as a result of some budget woes that they were having, they canceled that particular contract. They were helping to subsidize a particular route that services certain group home type living facilities in Villebois. But we continue to service. So
Okay.
nobody lost any service.
Do you know where then in the line the revenues from the shared line with chariots would be? I had thought it was that line.
Yeah, I think that is the line. It probably got folded into, you do charge for service on one route, right?
On the 1X, yes.
Yeah, and it roughly is about 20,000 a year.
Right, but she's asking, it's not budgeted.
It's not listed. I think it either got aggregated into those intergovernmental line or the fines. or the investment revenue, we'll take a look.
It's still coming.
It'll be roughly 20,000.
Yeah.
It's for the 1X ride to Salem.
Yeah, okay. On, I think it's page 106, which I think is transit.
6.
That might be community development, which would be a different presentation. I'm gonna skip that one.
Okay.
There was talk about a town center transit hub. Will that just be in addition to what's currently on Barber, or will that kind of replace Barber as the main hub?
Right. What we initially proposed is money to study that. And with the town center redevelopment, we believe transit is going to be an integral part of that redevelopment. Whatever it looks like, I certainly want to be a part of that. And so we're going to start looking at where best to place a transit hub. And maybe the word hub is kind of an exaggeration, really just kind of layover spots where buses can, a couple of buses might be able to sit and wait out, layover, and then proceed onto the route, so.
Okay. For, now that the Vuela, is that how you say it, Vuela?
Yes, Vuela.
Okay.
Vuela,
Now that that building is built and people are parking there and living there and everything, do you know if there's going to be designated parking spots for the building and then other just kind of transit parking?
Well, I can speak to the vision. The vision that we had was, and that helped to reduce the cost of the construction, was to utilize the parking lot, the far west end of that parking lot. And so the parking lot itself is owned by TriMet. And so the developer and TriMet have worked together. There was an initial agreement for a laydown yard. The laydown yard is now pretty much gone. And so there is some agreement between the developer and TriMet. I'm just not privy to it, but that was the plan, to carve out about 125 spaces that may be at some point fenced in, separated. They could even put, covered parking if that's what they decide to do. And then there would be a fee of, whatever they come up with to the residents that want to actually utilize that parking
Okay,
facility.
but that's not something that City of Wilsonville would be paying for?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all.
The other one, I don't know if you know this. Do you know for like the early routes, I'm thinking 1X specifically because that's the one that I ride, for those 6 a.m. start times, do you know if bus driver schedules, if they start at 6 a.m. or if they start before that time?
Generally, they start before that. So if the trip leaves at 6 o'clock, the driver may start anywhere from 5:30 to 5:35. There's a prep period ahead of that, ahead of the starting that route that is required, where the driver, does a walk around of the buses, checks all the safety features, everything, windshield wipers, make sure everything's working before they leave the lot. And because we have a hub and spoke type system, most of our routes, not all of them, but most of them start at the transit center. So it's a 2.5 minute drive from our operations facility, our fleet facility, to the transit center there. So usually they're not delayed by a great amount of time unless there is an issue with the bus. We may have to swap the bus out, or the shop can make some type of running repair. If it's a headlight, for instance, they may be able to put another headlight in there very quickly, that type of thing.
Okay. I'm just asking because those of us who regularly ride the 1X 6 a.m. route know that it's kind of inconsistent on when it shows up. So I wasn't sure if schedule adjustments need to happen, but it sounds like there should be sufficient time for that.
Oh, absolutely. And Diana's here, and that's part of her area. And so, we'll take note of that. But we had a conversation recently at a staff meeting, and one of the things that I insist upon is the buses get off the lot on time and in enough time. And so we have supervisors that are there to make sure that happens. It does occasionally occur where, there is something that delays that bus getting off the lot. But that should be the exception and not the rule. And if it sounds like it's becoming the rule on that first 1X, then I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, I know there's.
As is Diana. Yeah.
I know there was one instance recently where all of the morning start times were delayed because the gates weren't open, but that was that was a different situation, obviously. SMART is my favorite transit line that I've ridden, doesn't change that. So, I mean, thanks for everything.
Well, we have something in the shop there that says Cynthia Russell is our favorite customer. I didn't know who you were, but now
That's me.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. No, we love all our customers, we do, and I've been doing this for almost 41 years, and I love it as much today as I did when I started. So it's all about helping people, and I just want to help as many people as I can with whatever time I have left. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Member Berry.
Thank you for your presentation. And you didn't really mention that you've added on service like down to Amazon.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. We started Amazon service between Wilsonville and Amazon, and we're the only transit system, I believe, that actually goes to the Amazon campus. We connect with Chariots and then Woodburn down in that area. We started that in January. That is one of Diana's, probably one of the first things, things that she really had to dig into. And we've had incredible ridership on that particular service. For a new service, you don't usually see a ridership, right off the bat. But because of the WALA development, we had built-in customers. I just think it's an incredible opportunity for us to help lift folks out of a certain, socioeconomic status, if you will. From what I understand, Amazon pays a very good starting salary. They have benefits, all of those things. So if we can, and our goal was to not have transportation be a barrier for those folks. And so we've seen it. I tell the story when it did my heart good. I was on my 3X. I ride the bus pretty much every day. I couldn't ride because you guys had this late night meeting tonight. But anyway, I couldn't ride today. But anyway, and I was riding my bus, my 3X, into Wilsonville, and we got a call when a driver called and wanted to hold that 12X, which is the one that goes to Amazon. And the driver said, sure, I'll wait a few minutes or whatever till you get here. And she said, well, good, I have like 6 people that today was their first day at Amazon that morning, and they didn't want to be late for their first day. And so my heart wow. That's why I do what I do. That's why we do what we do. That's why this team is one of the best teams that I've ever worked with. And that's why they're here tonight, to support me, or maybe they thought I wouldn't do a good job. I don't know. It's probably a little bit of both. But I love these folks. I really do. Yeah, good. Yeah. But thank you for bringing that up.
Could you just touch base a little bit on Dial-A-Ride program too? Are you going to keep that at the current levels, or do you hope to expand that? How's that working?
Well, Dial-A-Ride is one of those things that we are a victim of our success there, because we'd like to do less of it because it's expensive. But that being said, we want to go where people want us to go, when they want us to go. And, there's dialysis trips and things like that are lifesavers for folks. And so we don't deny any of those services ever. We will not deny those services. But we will continue to look for opportunities to group those trips, because what happens is you take a bus out and we pick someone up, and they like just them and the bus driver. But when we're operating at maximum efficiency, we are picking up 2 or 3 or 4 people and taking them to similar locations within, if they're coming into town center. One wants to go to Safeway, one wants to go to a crumble cookie. I just say that because we have them in the back there. And one wants to go to Chase Bank. Well, instead of having 3 or 4 buses pick up each one of those folks, we group those trips. And so our dispatchers are trained to look for those opportunities to group those trips. But Dial-A-Ride is a very, very, especially for our elderly folks, a very, very popular service. And they like their drivers. They only want their driver to pick them up. And so I think it's very cute. But yeah, it's one of our more successful services. Folks really like that service. Yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
Oh, sure.
So when you do Dial-A-Ride, you call in to schedule?
Yes.
But I understand that you're working towards being able to schedule online. Is that right, or not? No?
Oh, she's shaking, no, I guess not. I know, it sounds.
Something to think about.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, but I also, it's like the customer service welcome center that we're opening. We could have done a lot of things in an automated fashion, kiosks and things like that. But I think the human element is very, very important when dealing with folks and trying to, convince them that your product is worthy of their time and their effort. And so I like when I call for a human to answer the phone. I don't like push 2 and 3 and 4, and I get very confused easily with all these numbers. So, but I hear what you're saying, and there are agencies out there. Some of the larger agencies have automated scheduling services, and so I won't say never, but right now I think our customers like what we're doing for them. So.
Yeah, it's a great service.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Mayor?
Just a comment, ditto for every time I've spoken about you on the budgets in the past. I'm a fan. One of the most enjoyable things I've had as mayor is to go into all the regional meetings with you present, sometimes when you're not in the room. And mayor's emailing me directly, how can we get SMART to come to our community? And TriMet's in the room and watching them squirm as they're cutting service and everything else. So it's, you're kind of the rock star as your organization you lead. And I just want to say the trolley, man, seeing that for the first time, I think I was walking early in the morning with George, and there it was going down on Wilsonville Road. I took a snapshot and circulated. It was like a big deal, and our family just loves you guys. And so, but it's fun to see TriMet just squirm while we're just glorified by everybody else. So
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and many mayors have put me on the spot in front of TriMet on purpose.
Yes.
And they'll say, TriMet's $300 million in the hole. Dwight, how far in the hole is SMART? And the answer is not at all. And the truth be known, we are, probably one of the most healthiest departments in the city. And we're very proud of that. We worked very hard to get there. We're going to work very hard to stay there. But there's, TriMet will say it's apples and oranges, and, and they get very upset about it, which pleases me to no end. So anyway, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that.
Member Skull?
To that point, moving into the future, can you tell me a little bit about what the equipment split is per energy type, and what your plans are as energy costs rise, both electric, fuel, the whole gamut? What you're thinking here moving forward?
Well, we had a goal of being completely alternative fuel by 2028. We're still tracking in that direction. Some of the bus delivery and delays and things like that. And then we have, we're narrowing it down to just 1 or 2 or 3 bus manufacturers now, which makes it very, very challenging. Some have been bought up, some have gone by the wayside. So Scott, can you talk about, come on up real quick. What's our current breakdown of fuel types?
Out of 34 vehicles, natural gas is about 15 of those, 14, 15 of those. And then we've got 4 electric, and the rest are a split between gasoline and renewable diesel. So it's,
And those are our oldest vehicles.
Yeah,
Most-
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what's the oldest Cutaway that we have? 13 model year right now that we're running?
2012.
2012. And keep in mind, these are the federal government only requires, what, 7 years?
7 years.
Yeah, so we're getting a lot out of these things. So, folks, and that's part of the reason I think we're as financially stable as we are. Part of the reason, not the whole reason, but it's because we do things like continue to run 2012 vehicles because they do, and I ride on them every day. They take very, very good care of them.
So over time, is your goal to go a certain percentage of propane and a certain percentage of electric, or all electric?
It's based more on vehicle type.
The vehicle,
So,
the size and.
Yeah, the small Cutaway buses are pretty much all natural gas or will be
Or
in the
natural gas,
future. We're looking at getting an electric one to try, but we want to do that as a one-off, see if it works. The large buses are mainly going to electric.
Okay.
We have a grant application in right now, Kelsey wrote with PGE for a electric Cutaway. So hopefully we'll find out about that. When, Kelsey, how soon?
In the fall.
In the fall. And I think we have an interview with them coming up. Yes. So I think we will be successful there. And so we'll try out the electric Cutaway, see what the range is. And we'd love to put those on, the Clackamas Town Center service, see if they can handle that distance. So, yeah.
Don't we have like one of the, not very many places have the electric chargers for the buses, right?
Oh, yeah, we've got how many active right now?
6.
And we have the ability to ramp up to, what, 12?
Yes, I believe it was 9.
9, okay, yeah, so, yeah.
But that's kind of unusual, right? The other jurisdictions don't really have that access.
Yeah, and we've been very fortunate. I mean, Scott and I went to a conference years ago before we even bought our first electric bus, and we learned from the mistakes of some of the other agencies, and so we've been very, very fortunate, but it was deliberate on our part. We did not want to make a mistake on this thing, so because we knew, there was a lot at stake, and folks were watching us, and and we won an award for our electric bus implementation. We were the first in the state to successfully, and that's the word, successfully, because others had tried and they failed, including TriMet. And TriMet has come to our shop for help, and we appreciate that, and we help them. If they ask us for it, we'll help them. So.
And don't you have mobile chargers?
Scott's working on that.
That is due to be delivered this month. That was a trailer-mounted charger that's intended to be used in the case of a power outage, or if, one of our depot chargers goes down, it would be a backup unit so that we can still operate.
And we received a great deal of praise. This was through an ODOT or a STIF grant, but we received a lot of praise from ODOT because we basically told them if somebody else needed to use this mobile charger, we would more than be willing to allow them to do that. And so the city of Sandy thought we already had it, and they called us and they called Scott and they said, can we come pick up this mobile charger? And we said, we really wish we had it and we'd loan it to you. But so it's something that we believe that if others in the region that don't have the depot charging, because I don't think Sandy has it yet, though they have electric buses. I'm not sure how they're doing it. But anyway, that we could share that technology with others, so, yeah.
Member Scritzmeyer.
I took the opportunity to ride the 10X on Monday, on launch day, and it was amazing.
No way!
Yeah, it was so
Cool.
fun. I'm glad I did it. I work in Clackamas twice a week, and so it's really nice to be able to get so close to work, and seeing how many students are going to be able to access educational opportunities, because it stops at Riverside High School, it stops in West Lynn, Oregon City, and Clackamas. it was just a great experience, and I'm so happy for this route and the opportunities it's going to provide for people. Staff also let me into the customer service center, even though it's not open yet, and it looks great. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, thank you for that. And I got email from the community college folks, the staff over there, and they were over the moon. They said, Dwight, we want to ride the first day. And they said, we want to ride with you. I said, I'm riding at 5:30. They said, we don't want to ride with you.
That was me.
Okay, yeah. And, but I understand that they were out there the first day and rode. And but the opportunities for students is incredible. When we created the route, when we thought about it, that really was, was just everybody. We thought, but the students, wow, that's incredible. But yeah, I had someone today send me an email and said, Dwight, I hope you get this. I'm waiting for the bus at Oregon City Shopping Center. I hope, what time does it come? Now they're sending me an email, this customer, and I didn't get it right away. And then before I could respond to her first email, she said, I got it, it's here, thank you. And she said, oh, this driver is great. He's probably going to take your job someday. And I went, wow, that's horrible. So, anyway, yeah. Transit can be fun, folks. It doesn't have to be boring. And, it's been great. So, thank you all.
Any other questions? Member Engel?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the presentation. Sure. I did notice one of your goals listed here is safe transportation options to the city of Wilsonville meetings, facilities, and activities. And one thing that I do remember from looking at bus schedules is there's usually not bus service out in front of this room. Is it past 8 p.m.? When does bus service end?
Yeah, it could be around that time, 8:30, 9 o'clock, something like that.
Right, and for a city that takes civic engagement as seriously as we do, and the number of people we've been seeing coming to council lately, is there any thought towards providing a single late service, or is that something that's only available through Dial-A-Ride? What could we do to make city council more accessible?
Well, yeah, Dial-A-Ride is only available during the hours of operation. So if we, shut down at 9:30 or 9 o'clock, say for instance, then Dial-A-Ride would kind of mirror that. I think if there's a need for that type of service, then certainly we would be interested in doing that. Any city event, party in the park, or, we're going to be there, we're going to have our trolley there, we're going to, be engaged. But what you're looking at there would either be a crosstown route, which is a route that services here, the city hall, or the 2X, which goes all the way to Tualatin. So it would probably be more the 4X kind of going back and forth throughout Wilsonville. Might make it difficult for other folks that don't live on the line to walk over to basically Wilsonville Road to catch that. But, we could certainly look at that and see if there's a need. Sure, yeah. I don't think it would be that challenging to do something like that.
Yeah, certainly the biggest thing that would be unpredictable is exactly when the bus leaves.
Yeah.
Member Cunningham?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to second what the mayor said about other cities and how they talk about SMART. I'm able to shadow the Washington County Coordinating Committee meetings and to hear them gripe about TriMet. It's kind of funny. I also noticed I lost the page, but it was the first page you referenced earlier where it shows the current payroll tax rates, and I saw that ours remains steady. Pretty much everybody remains steady except for TriMet. Theirs went up. So that's obviously a really good benefit to our community for our payroll tax that we pay, 0.31%, 0.32% per dollar. Yeah. So that is obviously great. One thing I was going to mention that just kind of I just observed in the community that the trolley seems to be kind of taking more of like a regular route than, because I thought that was like more of like an event bus. Is that just because we're waiting for one of those buses that we were trying to get to come through?
Well, no, what happened, I think, Counselor, is that when we unveiled the trolley, I was bombarded with emails after about 2 or 3 months. People said, where's the trolley? You rolled it out at the Beckman, bridge, and we haven't seen it since, And so we were still going through our paces because the day it was out at Beckman, we hadn't gone through it the way Scott and his team likes to. So it took us a little while, and then we have to we train every driver on the trolley. We don't just allow them, or on most of our buses, we do that. And so we heard them. We heard the residents saying, we want to see the trolley, and so Diana decided, we'll put it out on the Route 4 and let it, kind of go back and forth. And it never goes out of town, meaning we don't send it to Woodburn or Canby, but we do allow it to operate. And the drivers love it, and they love to ring the bell. But that's why you're seeing it, because there was a demand to see it,
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of the book bike. They won't let me drive that thing either unless I go through the training course, so.
Absolutely, yes.
I guess to kind of piggyback on that, there was a couple of thoughts on that. Because that bus came from a different kind of funding source than our standard buses, right?
That's correct, yes. Yeah. That was I think it was Volkswagen settlement money is where we got through DEQ, or what's that? Yes, okay, yeah.
So I guess, is there any concern about, kind of putting the miles and wear and tear on that when we have, things that are funded by those other grants that we could be kind of using in its place more and reserving that for maybe a longer term use in the city?
I guess there's some consideration that we could give to that, keeping in mind that the previous trolley we had for over 20 years, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it probably had about 40,000 miles on it over the 20 years.
So it's got some life it can.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, I think we've got, but I get what you're saying. I think this vehicle, most large transit vehicles are a 12-year, they're rated a 12-year. So this one would probably be in that range, but I could see that vehicle operating in the city of Wilsonville for the next 25 years or so. But I will take it, Diana, take it easy on the truck.
Well, actually, I was going to see if there's maybe some other ways we can use it. That was kind of what I was going into next.
Okay.
I know some of the conversations when we were talking about our tourism promotion and things like that. One of the ideas that came up was utilizing our transit service that we have here, homegrown, to be able to help provide more in the tourism realm of providing, maybe tours out to wine country and things like that, or maybe if it can't be, alcohol-based or anything like that.
Right.
But finding opportunities like that and working with our tourism promotion to, maybe on Saturdays have something that stops at our local hotels to be able to run some of those things. So that was just a thought that I had, and when I came up with that, or somebody probably told me that last year, then I heard that we can't use those federally funded buses for that. But trolley.
We can, yes.
So
you're right.
Just a consideration on that.
Good point. I mean, it's a good point. It's probably the only bus we have in our fleet that was funded differently. The federal government has a prohibition, a restriction on that type of thing.
Yeah.
But this bus doesn't have those same restrictions. The trolley doesn't, so.
Yeah, so just some thoughts around that.
Yeah.
Then kind of getting back to the numbers, I was looking at page 159 where it kind of goes through some of the performance measurements. And I was kind of surprised to see that the number of passenger trips for our fixed route, that's a 30, almost 32% jump in our forecast. And just kind of checking in to kind of see where that number, that's a huge jump to see where that number came from.
Well, I think with the added service that that we've already added, and right now we're kind of just status quo. We're not planning any major additions moving forward, but I think what we're seeing across the country we're thinking that, you know, this new service, especially Clackamas Town Center and then the Woodburn service, we're expecting to see, you know, quite a bit of ridership on those. So anything else, Diana, you want to add on ridership increase? You can come on up. Yeah. Introduce yourself. First budget committee meeting, so be nice to her.
Oh, I will.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Diana Cutler. I'm the operations manager. I think it's a factor of two considerations that we're looking at ridership. Number one, most transit agencies throughout the nation are still rebuilding from the pandemic. So we're seeing an increase in ridership of about, since I started in September, at about 3 to 4% per month of just people coming back and regularly using public transit services. And as Dwight mentioned, some of it, we're also looking at new services that we're starting, and that's incorporated in those projected numbers. The last component is that we did open a TOD. We do have a fully operational transit center. So in combination of those three items, we anticipate the ridership to increase.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of figured that with those other two routes starting, that would definitely play into it. But then I was kind of comparing that number to some of the other numbers on here, and you know, to have that kind of increase in ridership and a 27% increase in total miles from the estimated from 25, 26, and to have the operating cost basically remain static, is only a 3% increase. So I was just kind of looking at this and wondering how do those numbers actually work together with a 31%, 32% rider increase, a 27% total mile increase, and only a 3.2% operating cost? We got some efficiencies going on.
Well, sure, but, you know, if you think about it, if you have a 40-foot bus that seats 40 people, the cost of operating that bus is the same whether there's 40 people on it or if there's one.
That's true, yeah.
The cost doesn't change, the fuel is the same, you know, everything. So I think there's some of that in there. Diana, you may want to.
That is correct. I mean, the ridership, it's more efficient use of the capital equipment that we currently have and operate and own. As far as the mileage is concerned, again, addition of the new routes, we did have some significant staffing shortages in the past, so I think the delta you're seeing in operating cost is a reflection that we're planning to be fully staffed, where in the previous fiscal years, we did have some significant shortages.
Okay, and then kind of the last number, when I went through all that, and then I went back to the top for the cost per passenger trip, you know, we saw a 21% increase in cost per passenger trip, but we didn't see that in total operating costs. And if you divide the total operating costs by the number of passenger trips, it actually ends up being $24.47. So I just couldn't understand how we got that number.
So your number is better than our number.
It is.
We'll take yours.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So
we'll take yours. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just noticed those, and then I guess to go down to the dial-a-ride question, you know, I've had people ask me, and I've kind of wondered myself, when we're looking at a forecasted cost of $99 per passenger trip, and by my math, it's about 5 miles per trip that they're taking. I mean, it seems like there's other options out there for individual rides and things like that. Like an Uber would cost about $15 for that same ride. And, you know, I just wonder about cost efficiencies of the dial-a-ride system. I think it's a great system, and I think that supporting people who need that individualized service is absolutely an amazing service that our city offers, and we need to continue to pursue that. But I'm wondering if at a cost of $99 per ride, if there's not something else out there like an Uber service or consideration of maybe a right-sized vehicle to go and pick them up and lower operating costs to a level that's not $100 every time somebody gets on that.
Yeah, you know, and that is one of the things that transit has struggled with over the almost 41 years that I've been doing it, is the dial-a-ride. And it's also, in some cities, they just call it paratransit service. The smaller vehicles, the cost per ride has always been extremely high.
Yeah.
The federal government requires that we provide that service. Now, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's microtransit, and we actually are purchasing a smaller electric van for this type of service that will hopefully drive that cost down. But as I said earlier, when Councilor Berry asked her question, one of the tools that we use is group trips. And we have spoiled a great number of our customers. They don't want to ride with anybody else. And so we have to, I'm serious when I say this, so we have to force them.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah, we have to force them. And so instead of just them and the bus driver, it's them and maybe 2 or 3 other people. And they don't like that very much. But that drives that cost down. That $99 trip is the most expensive trip. You know, we're talking a cutaway, which is a smaller vehicle, but not a van,
Right.
and the driver and this customer. If I put 3 or 4 more customers on that one trip, this cost will almost drop, by half.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to do. This is worst case scenario. Believe it or not, this is, I'm not saying it's better than anybody else's. These are the numbers that we're seeing pretty much across the region, if not across the country. We meet regularly. We met today, the small providers, and some of their numbers are higher than ours. I'm not suggesting that we can't do better. We should do better. And we'll look at, like I said, smaller vehicles. Even, we get calls about microtransit. My only concern there is how do I, as a transit director, guarantee customer service is provided at a very high level. These won't be our drivers. They won't be our vehicles. They have to be accessible, or we just transfer all of our ambulatory customers over to that service. But I still feel an obligation to make sure that whatever service we're involved in, that we're paying for, is of the highest quality, because it gives us all a black eye. And then, you separate the services. You have, this is not smart service, but technically it is because we're paying for it. So, but that's certainly an idea that we should probably pursue.
Yeah.
See what the cost would be.
And I definitely understand those points, and especially the idea of around, if we can figure out, and I love to hear that we're, trying to get 3 or 4 people together, whether or not they like it.
It's tough.
But obviously that does maximize and create efficiencies. I guess it's just looking at, that $99 per ride, that's taxpayer, it's $100 taxpayer money every ride, and it's 560% more expensive than an Uber ride.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, looking at, using our taxpayer money wisely, that's a tough pill to swallow, to have something that's 560% more expensive. And so I do appreciate that you guys are thinking about those efficiencies and right-sizing vehicles and things like that. And I hope that we can continue to do that and find some ways to bring that number down, because that one's a shocker, I think, for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Can we get the cost per passenger trip that Member Cunningham mentioned? Can we get those calculations sent to us? How that's determined?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Yes, Member Engel.
Thank you. I'll keep it quick because I know we're running late or later in the evening. With fuel being 4% of your budget, it's not the biggest line item, but it's a growing line item. Have you explored, is there even enough, I don't know what your guys' energy consumption is to charge these buses, but to look at self-generation with solar panels or other opportunities to make yourself some cheaper electricity?
Yeah, we haven't had to do that until, now we're starting to think that, that may be a good idea because of the cost of energy. Thus far, we've had a pretty easy go of it. But, even, diesel or, gasoline is going to impact transit agencies really, really hard. You've probably heard airlines are struggling jet fuel and the like. And I was on a meeting the other day with TriMet, and they're crying already over R99, which is the renewable diesel. And we use that same product as well, just not in the same numbers that they do. So, we're having to look and rethink our entire approach to fuel at this point, so.
Member Cunningham?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Chair Russell. If we could get kind of an explanation of that performance measurement, that would be helpful. I compared it to the estimated 25, 26, the total operating costs divided by number of passenger trips, and it came out to $31.32, which matched that cost per passenger trip. So that's what I thought maybe that there was something else in that it was calculated, but that came out pretty close. That came out exactly close, and the 24 to 25 came out within 60 cents, so.
Any other questions? Well, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who presented tonight. I know it's a lot of time and effort that goes into this, and we all appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Where are we?
Okay. Are there any members of the public who previously did not testify who now wish to testify regarding the fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget? Okay. Does staff have any further presentation or comments at this time regarding the fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion to continue the public hearing regarding the City of Wilsonville fiscal year 2026-27 proposed budget to 6 p.m. on Tuesday, May 12th, 2026?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion to continue the public hearing to 6 p.m. on Tuesday, May 12th, 2026 has been moved by Mayor O'Neill and seconded by Member Skull. Any discussion? All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed state nay. Any abstentions? The vote has passed unanimously. The hearing will be continued to 6 p.m. Tuesday, May 12, 2026, and the record for public testimony will be kept open. Having no further business on the agenda, I adjourn the City of Wilsonville Budget Committee meeting at 9:38 p.m.
Yeah, she does have it.